out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spotlight. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That is Stephen Jensen. It is October 12th, and shout out to Big Dick MLJ. As always, look, you can see how big the dick is with this widescreen. Look at that. He's in Japan doing that. It might be bigger, honestly. He's in Japan dragging that thing around all cork and hall.
I don't have enough space. There we go.
Oh, shout out to MLJ for doing the intro. As always, Jensen, it is Thursday. It is another busy week in the world of professional wrestling, as it always is. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Outside of the Vikings, what they got going on. I'm repping my Justin Jefferson jersey, on injured reserve right now. Really unfortunate. Lost some money this weekend up at the casino. Did a little sports gambling, played a little blackjack. I'm not endorsing or encouraging people to go out there and gamble themselves. I did have a good time though, hanging out with some friends. I actually met my parents actually happened to be at the casino as well, so that was pretty cool seeing them. And so yeah, I had a really good weekend. Been a pretty good week so far. It was wild because when I was at the casino, it was in the mountains in North Carolina, and I didn't have any reception out there, definitely nothing that was strong enough to do live streaming. And when I got back home and it was probably, I don't know, Monday afternoon, I started catching up on everything. And I was like, okay, so Cody is one half of the tag team champions now. FTR lost the tag titles. Carlito's back. Undertaker, kind of teasing a return. I'm missing Jade Cargill appears on screen. All this stuff happened in the time span that I was unable to pretty much access the internet for a few days. Wow, I missed a lot. So we have a lot to talk about on today's show. I did a lot of catching up, but how are you doing, man? How are you doing today?
I'm well. I could have come visited you, I think, in the mountains. I had to drive through kind of a mountainish area from North Carolina to get back home to Ohio on Sunday. Had I known you were up there, I had a busy weekend just in general before that, and I was ready to get home. But my mom always goes to the casino up there.
Do you know where Murphy is? Murphy, North Carolina.
Murphy? No.
Yeah, that's when we go to. It's a Harrah's Indian casino. Yeah, they have a Murphy location and a Cherokee location. The Murphy one's 2 hours from me. The Cherokee one's closer to maybe closer to 4.
Okay, so I think she goes to the Cherokee one.
Yeah, that's the better one. That's the bigger one that most people would go to. The Murphy one's just closer, but they still do the sports book. I probably played 6 hours straight of blackjack without moving, and wound up losing overall. But I was up for a little while. But for me, blackjack, as long as I'm not losing an insane amount of money, I'm talking I lost maybe a couple $100 over the span of 2 hours or 6 hours. That's really not bad. But I was really just trying to learn that and there's people around me kind of teaching, because I never really played blackjack before. So I knew the concept of the game, of course, but what I was really trying to avoid was messing other people's cards up at the table. So they were kind of giving me advice. The dealer was giving me some advice. And then I had a friend there with me too that knew what he was doing. So after a few hours, I really got the hang of it. And then it was so it was actually a lot of fun. I'm actually planning on doing it again probably pretty soon, especially because they have all the TVs there for the NFL games and stuff. I watched your Carolina Panthers on one of the screens over the weekend too. But hey, dude, my boy Adam Thielen's showing out though. I love seeing that he still has it, even though the team isn't doing great. I get that, but he wanted to be the number one receiver somewhere. He wanted to prove that he still has talent. He's by far your best receiver, and he's catching touchdowns and putting up 100-yard games. I know it's not translating to wins, but
he's literally the only person who can catch the ball and do anything. So
yeah, I know.
I didn't watch the game on Sunday because I was driving back. I was listening to it on the radio, and it was 14-0 because Detroit scored 3 plays on their first drive. And I was like, I'm done with this. And then I was voice texting with the wife, and I was like, "What?" I turned it off. I was talking to her. I was like, "What's the score?" She's like, "Oh, it's 14-7 now." I was like, oh, "Okay, like I'll turn it back on." I turned it back on, and by the end of the half, it was like 28-7. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm done with this." I have not. They're not good, and the unfortunate part about them not being good is they don't even have a first round pick. So it's just like this is such a almost feels like a waste of a season. I know there's like, oh, growth, Bryce Young, growth, coaching staff, growth, and stuff. It feels like such a waste of a season, but it's hockey season. I don't care about football. It started last night. Avs are 1-0. That's all I care about.
There you go. One of these shows coming up. I have a Predators jersey I could wear. I've got a Pick Arena jersey from like years back. So I'll rock some hockey stuff. I'm not into it like you are, but like you can get me peripherally interested. Hey, dude, last year I dove deep in the NBA, so like I'm ready for this NBA season. So like I could be converted into a bigger NHL fan as well, I believe. So
I'm excited for your NBA journey. SP3 and I were talking a little bit about it on FMC this week.
About my journey or the NBA in general?
Yours.
Okay.
We were talking about the Atlanta Hawks. And that's when you came up of like, oh, Jensen can fill us in on the Hawks. And I was like, yeah, Jensen's getting into it. Like he's going to games and everything. So I'm excited to continue to follow how deep you get into the world of the NBA.
Yeah. Well, my favorite player is LaMelo Ball. So like, I'm hoping he's back like good from injury. Cause dude, I love LaMelo. Like, cause he just goes out there and is like, he just balls, dude. Like,
you love LaMelo because he wins you money, which I respect.
Yeah, well, I love Mikal Bridges because he wins me the most money. Mikal Bridges,
Bridges is actually good. LaMelo. Yeah.
Well, so like Mikal Bridges, and we'll get into the wrestling talk here in just a second, y'all, I promise. But like Mikal Bridges, I found out about when he was a backup for Phoenix, and he started like randomly winning me some stuff, and I was keeping my eye on him. Then he got an opportunity because I believe Devin Booker went down with injury, so he got like a lot of playing time, started showing out. I wound up asking for tickets for the Atlanta versus for the Atlanta game against Phoenix, and literally that morning of the game I was going to that night, he got traded to Brooklyn, so I didn't get to see him that game. I wound up still seeing him against Brooklyn though eventually. But no, I'm all in on Mikal Bridges. But I've got the LaMelo slimes. I've ever showed you those. Like I have the shoes and everything. I'm like all in on, dude. I love me some LaMelo Ball, dude. But I got plenty of players that I like. Well,
the Hornets are about a more embarrassing organization than the Panthers right now too. So they're doing well in Charlotte. Something's in the water in Charlotte.
Yeah.
That is, all right, let's
talk about some wrestling, y'all. All right.
Let's start.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. It was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
So a big night in wrestling with Tuesday night AEW, NXT, the Tuesday Night Wars, as it was. The ratings weren't actually all that competitive. Viewership NXT did about 300,000 more than AEW, and they won in the demo as well. Not too surprising, maybe that the gap was that big, just because AEW has held strong. I mean, they got them off of Wednesday nights, so AEW's always held strong against NXT. But NXT loaded up. They had Cena, they had Undertaker, they had Cody. Oh, I expected an NXT victory. Before all the ratings talk, the kind of the biggest talking point out of everything, though, was the MJF promo. The MJF promo where Jay White has stolen his belt and MJF wants it back. And then it got into Juice Robinson, who said, I have a roll of quarters with your name on it. And then Juice Robinson literally showed a roll of quarters with MJF's name on it. It's obviously caused a stir, a controversy, because of the anti-Semitism allusions, I guess we'll say, with everything. And then, MJF has told the story plenty of times on television, in media, about how he was treated growing up, with people throwing quarters at him and being what's the word I'm looking for?
He basically bullied over when he was growing up, over like people being anti-Semitic towards him.
Anti-Semitic, yeah. I I didn't want to say racist because that wasn't correct.
I know what you mean.
So yeah,
for sure.
bullied.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Being bullied with everything. So that was kind of the big talking point. MJF, it's come out and he has said, one, he's doing a stand up to Jewish hate conference. That's actually today. He's doing that today. He's speaking about that, and then he's come out and he just said, this is my life, this is my story. I want to have this conversation. I want to educate people. I want to have these hard conversations by doing this. Fightful reported that MJF, I think it's also very clear, MJF is comfortable with this story. This story is not happening without him signing off on it. And this is what he wants to tell on television. Jensen, I know you don't completely tout you're being a Jew, but I just wanted to get your thoughts first on all of that. And then I do want to have a wrestling conversation about
For sure.
this.
So yeah, I'll kind of just briefly touch on that. Like, I am Jewish. And it's something that, like, I really respect MJF a lot. Like, I've talked about that for years, even before he was in AEW. I would talk about him often on the Indies on the Weekender. People, and that's I have an actual like proof and track record. If you want to listen to the Weekender, you can hear literal audio proof of me talking about these people for years prior to most people talking about them. And MJF was a guy I've been on board for a long time. When I found out he was Jewish, it was like, damn, we have a real chance here for like a real Jewish star in wrestling, which is pretty rare. Like, we had Bill Goldberg representing for us in like the late 90s, but before that, it was like Barry Horowitz was like the ultimate jobber with like the Star of David on his trunks and stuff. Like, we never really had like a big Jewish star in wrestling until Bill Goldberg. And Goldberg's run was, pretty short in like the grand scheme of things. And MJF has kind of been like our guy. At least I don't want to speak for all Jewish people, of course, for really when it comes to anything. But it's one of those things where like it's cool for us to see. Like, and it's cool that he's so open about it and like so proud to be Jewish, because that's another thing that historically speaking, the Jews have been targeted, forever over a lot of different stuff. And it's one of those things where like, growing up, I dealt with a lot of the same kind of stuff MJF did, where like, you're like embarrassed to like tell people you're Jewish, like, because everyone else around you isn't. And like, it's like, you're like the weird kid when you come to school with like matzah for like a Jewish holiday. No one knows what it is. Like, you're like fasting on certain holidays and people think you're weird because you're not eating and like all this stuff. And you just kind of have to deal with everyone kind of making fun of you, kind of your whole life over it. And, that's one thing about like this whole situation, because this obviously, without getting super, super detailed in this and talking about it for the entire episode, I understand MJF wanted to do this story. I don't necessarily have an issue with him telling this story because the payoff is going to be him prevailing. Like, it's going to eventually be a story of like MJF as a Jewish person overcoming like the hate. So I do like that, but the timing of it isn't good, because like, obviously what's going on with Hamas and with Israel and all this stuff, like this is the worst possible time you could be doing a story like that. So I also understand, like, I've seen a lot of my peers, like other Jewish people in like wrestling media or even just wrestling fans on Twitter and stuff like that. And a lot of them are like really, really upset over this. And I want to keep that into account too, because I'm not happy about it, but I get the wrestling aspect here, and I understand MJF, because once again, MJF, you mentioned he told this story. He's told this roll of coin story on TV. He's told it multiple times. I've seen him tell it on the Indies multiple times before he even got on television. Like, this is a known story about MJF. This is a big part of like him and like who he portrays himself as, because it's a real story that's really him, and he puts it out there for us. But so I understand kind of all angles on this, but as someone who is Jewish, I once again, I don't want to speak for all Jewish people, because I know there's some people that are like really, really, really upset over this. And it's mainly because of the timing, I believe. Now, that said, I know, like, for instance, and this isn't his fault, but I know like Brian Alvarez had floated this idea on a podcast like a while back. He'd been like, what if they brought this into a story? And people jumped all over him and were like, that would be moronic for them to bring this onto television. Like, do not do this. This is a bad idea. And that was before the terrorist attacks that are currently going on. So like, it was already a kind of a sketchy idea, or like kind of a dicey like idea to go with just in general, but to do it like while Israel's under attack, that's like, I don't like that they're doing it right now, I guess, really at the end of the day. And it's mainly because it just seems a bit tone deaf. And I think like, I once again, I don't want to name names, but I've seen other people that I know that are Jewish that are like really, really, really upset over it, to the point where like they don't want to support AEW right now at all because of it. So like I can't say that they're wrong in feeling that way either. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about it, just kind of in a nutshell. And obviously the bigger, more important thing here is like just in general what is going on in Israel. I'm not going to once again elaborate on this. People know what's going on. It is terrorism, and I do obviously support Israel. And if people have problems with me saying that, I really don't know what to tell you. I'm raised Jewish. I have friends and family. You know, this is something that's really serious and it's really scary. And, you know, my people have been under attack really like forever over stuff. And like, you know, I understand it's a never ending cycle of violence. I understand that people have gone back and forth. I get all that. But like what we're seeing right now is terrorism against civilians. And that's like nobody should be supporting that, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'll leave everything with that, with my thoughts and all that.
I appreciate your comments on everything, Jensen.
Oh, I'm not means by saying these things. It's just my honest opinion on kind of what's going on right now with all of that. So
I think when you should be listened to, and you know, anybody, I'm not here to tell anybody how to feel about this. I said a lot on In the Weeds yesterday, and Joel, who's also Jewish, he said a lot. I think these are the voices people should listen to, and people should not tell other Jewish people how to feel about this, because it's not really our place. And I know some people might be comfortable with this. So some Jewish people might be comfortable. It's like, let MJF tell his story. Okay, that's fine too.
Right.
Like, if that's how you feel about it, fine.
Right.
I'm with you. Everything with the conflict going on. I don't know how anybody's supporting any of that, but and I think that is the biggest, one of the biggest. I don't want to say the biggest. One of the biggest problems with this is the timing of everything.
Right.
Because when this was first mentioned, and it was by Alvarez a few months ago, it was after MJF told the quarter story during the team with Adam Cole. And Alvarez mentioned of like, oh, Cole's going to turn on him by hitting him with a roll of quarters. This is before All In and everything. And everybody's like, yeah, that's not a great idea. And Joel and I had this conversation on the show then of like, well, what if it's Juice Robinson? And not because Juice Robinson, let's be fair, he has the history with the roll of quarters. He's been hitting people with a roll of quarters for years now.
Right. So and also, I just want to throw in here, because I see a lot of people in the chat mentioning this. Like, and this is part of the problem. It is strange to make it out like Juice Robinson is a racist. Like, you know what I mean? But like, that is going to be his, basically the character of this in this story is how it seems, which like, that's a weird look for Juice. Like, this probably puts him in a weird spot too, even like agreeing to doing that. But I understand what you're saying, though. It does tie in with him actually using quarters. So right.
It does. I think so. Here's kind of my issues with it from this perspective. One is like flashing the quarters, but like, I got a roll of quarters with your name on it. Like, if he just like hits him with the roll of quarters, it's still not good, but it's something just Juice Robinson does. And then people are obviously going to make the easy tie-in there of like, oh, he hit him with the roll of quarters, MJF's Jewish, he's told the quarter story type of thing. But at least it's within the Juice Robinson kind of character to do all of that. Basically, promoting that he's doing this makes it look worse, at least in my estimation. I want to kind of have a conversation about MJF and what MJF is hoping to accomplish here, because it is his story to tell. He said this. I will read his tweet. Let me pull this up just so everybody understands where I am going with this. There was obviously a lot of comparisons to Muhammad Hassan, the WWE character who was a terrorist, portrayed a terrorist, and then it happened the same day, at least within a day, of the London bombings, and then they still ran it, and then basically they took Hassan off television, never mentioned again, and it's not brought up anymore. And people the fake outrage over nobody ever said anything about this. Yeah, they literally took that man off of television. Okay.
He was never seen again after that. It was a gigantic. Yeah, that was a humongous thing when it happened. And the thing with him, which was so crazy as well, which this is off topic a little bit, but like he initially really should have been portrayed as a babyface because his character initially was a guy who was being profiled unfairly because of his background, because people thought he was a terrorist, and then they turned him into a terrorist on the show. Like, that was a terrible move. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, you're fine. So MJF tweets, Muhammad Hassan was portraying an evil Muslim terrorist. I'm actually Jewish. I've actually gone through this. This is my real life, my story. And I look forward to giving catharsis to every single person who's ever been oppressed or bullied. If you think I'd play with that or take it lying down, or worst of all, hide from hard conversations like a coward, you're on crazy pills. I look forward to the hard conversations this starts and creates. I look forward to people being further educated. My life's work is to stand up to any and all injustices done to people due to something as stupid as being different. To anyone that thinks that can't be done through the avenue of professional wrestling, then that's an indictment on things that have happened in this sport's past. I look forward to bringing this sport into the present. I look forward to knocking Juice Robinson's teeth down his throat. Most of all, I look forward to getting back the Triple B. All right, he's trying to still do character stuff with the last two lines of Juice Robinson and like, most importantly, I'm going to get my belt back type of thing. Fine. Like, you don't want to fully come out and just be like, hey, I'm comfortable with this story. Juice is in on it too. And just completely break kayfabe on everything. I can understand that. The first portion of this, where he says he looks forward to having hard conversations, he looks forward to people being further educated and just like trying to do this type of story in the realm of professional wrestling. I respect it. I do. I respect that he wants to try to tell a positive story through, because most of the times when this stuff is portrayed, you mentioned like Muhammad Hassan, it seemed like, hey, let's try to do something where it's like, you're being profiled because you look like this and you're a terrorist. Let's make that a babyface character. And then they just turn into a terrorist. Mustafa Ali, kind of the same thing. Like, he's told that as well, as like, I want to try to stand up to like, no, I'm profiled for this. And then you basically get turned into the heel on that. The problem with this in professional wrestling, and I hope I don't sound too harsh, I love everybody in the chat. Professional wrestling fans, for the most part, are good people. Everyone
our chat's pretty rereasonable, specifically.
Yes. Our chat is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Discourse around professional wrestling is not reasonable. Like, look at yesterday with ratings. We are talking about ratings and the way people are acting. We were talking about numbers that, in the grand scheme of things, they mean something, but AEW is not getting canceled because of what happened yesterday. But look at the discourse surrounding just that kind of stuff. I don't think a lot of professional wrestling fans can have a reasonable discourse and discussion about something so nuanced, about a certain perspective, about religion, about being bullied. I don't think that they can do it. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm too online. Like, I don't know. I don't think there can be a reasonable discussion with this. I hope I'm wrong. Honestly, I do, because it would be nice to have this reasonable discussion. I just don't think wrestling fans want to have that conversation. Just don't.
Yeah. No, I totally get where you're coming from. I do. Listen, like I said a little earlier, I do think that there's potentially something really cool, like a story, and like especially MJF prevailing at the end of this. And the one thing I need to put out there, to be fair with the timing of this. Now, I have to like make this really clear. I'm just going to preface all this right here. I would not do the storyline right now because of the time with Hamas. Like, okay, just straight up. Like, I want to make that really clear. Now, that said, timing wise, on the flip side, with what's happening with AEW, I would imagine MJF's run as a babyface isn't going to be very long. And they probably don't have that much time to, like, if they're going to do a story like this of MJF prevailing as the super babyface, they probably need to do it like within the timetable of like whenever, before Adam Cole comes back or whatever. They might be playing with like a short amount of time where they're like, we need to turn MJF heel again at some point pretty soon. Also, I don't know.
I don't think they, after something like this too.
Well, no. I know. I agree.
Heel.
Well, like after something like this, it would be strange to turn him heel sometimes. But then again, like it's MJF, dude. Like he's looking for ways to make people hate him. Like what better way to make people hate him than like make you love him and feel bad for him, and then he stabs us all in the back again. You know, like I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying, like, if anyone's going to do something like that, like MJF is, like, he's the devil, right? Like, he's the guy who's trying to make you feel like you should be cheering him. Then he's going to rip your heart out, you know? So, like, but ultimately speaking, I think, listen, MJF takes his religion and everything way too seriously, too, like, in a good way, as far as, like, I don't think he's going to do this and, like, make the Jewish people come out looking bad at the end of a storyline. Like,
yeah,
this.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So, like, I am looking forward to the payoff of him shoving those coins down Juice's throat to get him back, or, you know, whatever and get his title back and all this stuff. But yeah, as far as the discourse for the fans though, like, I mean, that's where, if you look at my Twitter, it's pretty much a ghost town. I pretty much just go on there and I post like links for whatever I'm doing, retweet some stuff for the same kind of reason. Because even when it doesn't come to something like as serious as this, wrestling fans can't even. I mean, but it's been like that forever, man. Like it was even like that in the message board days. Wrestling is just this weird thing where everyone gets really emotionally attached to it. Everybody thinks that they're the biggest wrestling fan. They know the most about wrestling. Their favorite wrestlers should be the wrestlers that are getting pushed. Their storylines that they come up with their head should be what's happening. The champions that they want should be the champions. The company that they like should be the best company. And they just get married to it. And then there's just no conversation. It's just, it's like politics. It's like the people on the far right and the far left. Like, no matter, it's like not even worth having the conversation half the time, because they just accuse the other side constantly of the same exact thing that they're doing over and over again. Nobody gets anywhere. So that's kind of how I feel about wrestling with this. Like, I think that MJF could tell a great story, but like you said, at the end of the day, the actual conversation is just going to be people just yelling over each other. And who knows? You know, who knows if it'll actually accomplish anything positive or not? I don't know.
I think MJF is a great storyteller, by the way. I think I don't always love, I'm talking out throughout history. I don't always love his promos. I don't always love his material and everything, but he delivers it in a great way. I do think that he has overall, great ideas, and he follows through on them, and he tells them in a very great way. Sorry. Hold on.
You're good.
I'm just annoyed. I'm annoyed that I just keep message. Yes, I did it.
Someone message you?
Sean, he just, this is the problem of having to juggle two jobs, and I can't just focus on one. It annoys me.
I can take it away if you need to work on something real quick. If you want me to talk about something.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah. So I'm seeing people in the chat. Actually, there was a super chat I'll get to real quick. It's perfect timing. So Boggs Biega, I might be butchering that, but I appreciate the super chat, Boggs. It says there's 1,000 people who decry hyperbole and bait from Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless in sports. Guess who gets paid? Spoiler, not rational critics. Yeah, I mean, I understand that as well. I mean, there is a lot of like value, at least perceived value. It gets a lot of attention. Like people, if I'm understanding the super chat correctly, just the concept of like having like outlandish takes or being like super enthusiastic about something one way or the other. That's true. I mean, there's people who have definitely made careers of that. But there's also people who've made careers, like I know Ariel Helwani, for instance, like he's become a bit more outspoken since like leaving ESPN in recent years and stuff. But he's a guy who I think is pretty like level-headed, who has made a really long career for himself in mixed martial arts and in just media in general and stuff. I think it's possible to do it with a level head, but I do think a lot of people do get a lot of attention for being like loud and like putting like controversial opinions out there and stuff like that as well. And yeah, I mean, it seems like I think most people in the chat pretty much agree with us. It's a complex issue, all of this, but like I said, I'm a big MJF fan. Like I have been for a long time, and I do want to see him, continue to be like the main guy, you know, the AEW champion. I think he has so much to give to the wrestling business. And I think this will be a pretty cool story. Like at the end of the day, the timing's bad right now, but like it will be a cool moment, like for him to overcome this. So, yeah. Let me see what else we got. So I'll take it away for a second. What else we got in the chat, guys? Let's see. Just reading some of the chat here. You know what? I'll get into let me see what our next AEW spotlight was, and I'll talk about that a little bit here. All right, so our next AEW spotlight was FTR losing the tag team titles to Big Bill and Ricky Starkz, which I definitely didn't see coming. Let me know in the chat how y'all felt about that. So I like I said, I was at the casino over the weekend and I missed Collision because I didn't have internet access and it wasn't on television like in the casino. And when I got back on Monday to my house, I'm like, I saw a picture on Twitter of Big Bill holding one of the tag titles, and I was like, why is he holding this? And what do you know? The dude won the tag belts with Ricky Starkz. So I went back and I watched the match. And it was the decisive victory for Big Bill and for Ricky Starkz. Leads to a lot of questions, I guess. Like, you know, I know FTR already came out and said, you know, AEW is our home. We're not going anywhere. You know, nothing like that. But it was a little strange, them losing the titles kind of out of the blue, them putting up a tweet about like, you know, kind of thanking people for the title run. And I absolutely did not see that coming. Especially because Big Bill and Ricky Starkz have started teaming fairly recently. And FTR is on this run of beating all these established tag teams, one after another, in all these big matches. As a matter of fact, this is a good time for me to bring this up because I haven't brought it up on the show before. And Jeremy's coming back too right now, so he can hear the story also. So Jeremy, I was just talking about, Jeremy's in like y'all can't see him, but I was just talking about how, there he is. So I was just talking about how FTR has lost the titles to Big Bill and Ricky Starkz. And I don't think I've even told you this, but I have a really good friend named Michael Hughes. He comes over and watches AEW like every week with me. And he's been married for years to this girl, Sarah, super nice, who has never had any interest in professional wrestling, Sarah. But they've known each other for they've been married for probably the better part of 10 years already at this point. And no interest in wrestling ever. He watches AEW all the time, watches some like indies here and there, not really into WWE anymore, but big enough wrestling fan that he watches it every week with me. We action figure hunt together on weekends every now and then and stuff. Huge wrestling fan. His wife, never into it. She accidentally, like, I don't know if it was on DVR or if like he left the TV on or what. She watched Collision a little while back when it was FTR versus Bullet Club Gold, that hour-long tag team match. She just happened to like catch the beginning of it and watch the entire thing through by herself, no one else around, and then told him like, hey, I just watched this match and like, I think I get it now. Like, this is actually pretty cool. Like, I get why you like this. And since that match, she has watched every episode of Collision. She's been watching the pay-per-views. Like, she's like asking if we're watching Dynamite. She's even watching Rampage. And so the reason that I bring this up is because everyone's always talking about like how to draw in casual viewers to the show and to the product. Wrestling can still do that. Like, the actual wrestling match can still be entertaining enough to a complete novice fan that they see it and they get hooked. And I think that was something that people need to know about. I think it was badass. This girl is sitting around watching Rampage on Friday nights now. I mean, I don't even watch Rampage most weeks. And you know what I mean? And she's like, you know, because he comes over for Dynamite still, because it's kind of his getaway, like out of the house to come over here and hang out for a little while. It's like dude time. But so she'll like text us while he's over here and be like, she'll be watching it at home. And then, and it's even to the point where she watches Simon Miller's Ups and Downs now. Like, she'll wait to watch like people review the show. Like, she'll watch the show, even DVR it, and then watch YouTubers review the show. And this is all in the span of just like a couple months. So I want people to know that. And that's a big thing, is like FTR is like her team. Like, that's like the team that got her into it. She watches all the FTR matches, you know, and stuff. So it's like, so that kind of ties in pretty cool too, with like FTR losing these belts to Big Bill and Ricky Starkz and really like a real surprise title win. But what FTR accomplished during that run with their belts, on top of all the great matches and the title defenses and the various companies and pay-per-views and all this stuff they've done this on, they actually made new fans, or at least one new fan that's like a legit AEW fan now. So I think that's badass.
He says, "Get her to watch AEW."
Yeah, I guarantee you she would at least give it a shot. No, my buddy Mike, he lucked out because she's super. She goes to the Chestnut events with us too. Like she's the one. She's not like super into Joey Chestnut like I am, but she'll like find out where like the lines are and stuff, and like get in front so that like when we get there, like we can like jump in with her and stuff. Like she's super cool. So it's like it's really cool that she likes wrestling now, because now, you know, he comes over on Wednesdays, but now on Saturday nights, like they're not in like separate rooms, like doing different stuff. Like they're watching AEW Collision together. I mean, that's pretty beautiful, you know? And I know you have a similar situation where like, I know the EP like was already a wrestling fan, but like, that's cool that you have that together. Like it'd be way better than like having to like disappear from each other every time you want to watch wrestling. So
yeah, I've been in that situation too. But yes, no,
same. Yeah,
it is nice to share a common interest like that with your significant other, and the fact that the wife puts up with all the wrestling there is nowadays, especially like because there's so much nowadays. Guys, I apologize for kind of getting thrown off there, and then having to kind of need to leave the room for a second and take a breather with everything.
Okay. I got you, Jeremy. I can hold it down.
I appreciate it. We can move on from the MJF stuff because we do have a lot to cover.
Yep.
But yeah, I respect what MJF is doing. If you feel a certain type of way, I don't think you're wrong in your feelings. And
I agree.
I'll just kind of leave it at that. As far as FTR, you mentioned them, and Ricky Starkz and Big Bill winning the championships. Definitely a surprise because Ricky Starkz and Big Bill kind of just got put together not too long ago when Ricky Starkz was suspended. And then he was managing Big Bill. The title win seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. I think people thought FTR was going to have a really lengthy run, and they've had the belts for a while. It got caught. So much got caught in like the Punk vortex once Collision started, but like the Bullet Club Gold matches were good. I wasn't as high on the Young Bucks match at all, and a lot of people were, and they did the weird teaming thing with the Young Bucks. Starkz and Big Bill, though, I think especially Ricky, everyone knows I'm a big fan of Ricky. I'm very happy that he got the gold. Big Bill's been great in AEW, so I look forward to kind of seeing their run and see him. It was weird that everyone's like, "Oh, FTR must be leaving because they lost the titles." Like they literally just said they signed a 4-year deal at the start of this year, so they're not going anywhere, guys. Not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mentioned like while you're gone for a second how like they've even come out since then and said like, no, this is our home. Like we're not leaving. And Dave Langer in the chat with a pretty good point here, potentially that maybe Aussie Open was supposed to win and Mark Davis got hurt and this was a pivot. I could see that being the case, but also, you know, this is a good opportunity for Starkz and Big Bill in a lot of ways. Ricky Starkz needs something there because like they've done a good job of making him more than just like another guy, and they've done a pretty good job of like attempting to get him into kind of like the main event scene. But if he's not going to be like a main singles champion or something, or challenging for one of those titles right now, the tag belt is probably the best thing he could be doing. And it also helps elevate Big Bill to something important, because I've said that a few times on the show too. You know, people know that I love Omos and, you know, and Satnam Singh and these guys. And like, in all honesty, like I do respect those guys a lot, because we've seen in basketball guys like Sean Bradley and stuff, like the size doesn't always necessarily correlate to like the coordination or like the talent and stuff, but like the size can be impressive. But, you know, someone like Omos or Satnam Singh, I think actually moves around pretty damn well for like a guy his size. But like Big Bill is like, he's good. Like Big Bill isn't just like a big guy who's like competent and like barely getting around. Like Big Bill like actually can work, and he's that size. So, you know, and it's good to see, like, personally, he must have his stuff, like, you know, his ducks in a row. Cause I know, like, you know, the WWE, he left and he was still young and he had some stuff on the indies and like some weird looks and stuff for a minute. And like, but it seems like he's like got it together and like he's in good spirits. He's in phenomenal shape. And he's doing the best work of his career. And now they got kind of like the Diesel HBK kind of thing kind of going between those two guys, which is never a bad comparison to make because that was so successful, the Diesel and Shawn Michaels things for both of those guys for their careers long term. So like I'm all for it, you know. FTR was also getting to the point where like what was left, you know, how now except Violence is Forever. That was the one I wanted VIF versus FTR on AEW very badly. And we could still get that one day. That's the one miss I feel like. It was cool seeing them doing open challenges. It was cool seeing them against the Workhorsemen, who in my opinion are one of the best tag teams in the world and have been for a long time. So a lot of good things were accomplished in the FTR tag team run, but it was time for a new team to win the titles. And it is just a little strange. It's a team that like was just kind of put together in a company that's stacked full of established tag teams, but I'm here for it. I'm interested to see what they do with this.
I think some things were accomplished in the title run. The open challenge thing. I mean, we got Iron Savages, who we love.
Yeah.
Jack Jameson.
Yeah.
Everyone knows I love the ass eating.
They don't even like spread it with that.
They get in there and they get in that ass.
Shout out to
like they're getting television time now and everything. Workhorsemen, they haven't really been seen since that match. I do hope that they kind of get a little bit more of a showcase. I'm not counting ROH, guys. Like if they're on ROH, then good on them. But that show is what it is at this point. You know, and then they basically lost the belts. Aussie Open, unfortunately, Mark Davis got hurt, and so what can you do there? And then they lost the belts. So hopefully, you know, if Iron Savages keep getting featured and Workhorsemen get more of a spot, then I think more gets accomplished from those open challenges and everything. Sure. As far as Ricky and Bill go, like there's definitely nothing wrong with the comparisons to Shawn and Diesel. I hope, like Shawn and Diesel, they don't actually lose the titles, because Shawn and Diesel are 2-time tag team champions, never actually dropped them, which was
right. Oh, that's the you know, that's Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash. That's just on brand for both of those guys.
That's why that's why they roll.
I know.
Shawn Michaels just never dropped the belts. It's awesome.
Oh, you don't have to tell me twice, man. I've got my roster of my favorites, man. Kevin Nash, Bobby Fish, the Young Bucks, Jungle Boy. Nash is on that roster, man. So Cody, of course, but that's a different roster.
Will Tilden said Tony gave Ricky the title because Cody helped Jade go to WWE. He saw a video of Ricky at the Rumble with Cody. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I don't think it hurt perception either. Because Jade going, and then everyone knows Ricky is close with Cody, and Ricky is a guy who I think wants to do that work. And so Tony gave Jade that long TBS title run as well, and then she still left. So it's all what the performer wants. I don't think it really has any bearing on here's this title to keep you from going to WWE. If you give the person the belt and then still don't do anything with him, then you know what does that matter? People want to be able to tell. This is why FTR kind of left WWE, right? It's here, we'll give you the belts. It's well, we're not actually doing creative storylines with these belts. We just have them. It's basically a prop. Here, hold these for a little while. Yeah. People want to be involved creatively with stuff. Right. So I don't think that it gave them the belt. Hey, take this so you don't go anywhere. You still got to do something creative.
No, that's a funny super chat, though. I like that super chat from Will. Good super chat, Will. And no, but it's in WWE, it's you can hand us the titles, but if the storyline is us shaving each other in the locker room, then who cares if we're the champions or not? Because people are just gonna make fun of us. Because that was what they were actually doing. There was storylines of them shaving each other and stuff backstage, and people were why would this be a character? Anyway, we can move on. That's probably a pretty good transition to WWE topics. If you want to.
Yeah. WWE, here we go.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Cody finished his story. He's got a title. He's got 2, just like Roman. Roman's got 3 now, but he's got 2 titles. Story's over. How happy are you?
Story's over. How happy am I? Well, I don't have a Cody Rhodes tattoo and I don't have blonde hair right now, Jeremy. So this doesn't count. For people who don't know, that was the plan for WrestleMania. I had a tattoo appointment and I had hair dyeing appointment. I was going to show up on the spotlight the following Thursday with like looking like Cody Rhodes. I wasn't put the tattoo on my arm. I got to cover up another tattoo anyway. But I was gonna do that, and anyway, that all got ruined. Maybe next year. The tag team titles thing, man. Obviously, it's a story to get back to Roman. It's a story that gets him onto SmackDown and Raw at the same time. I get it. I'm still terrified that like The Rock's going to be involved and like this is all going to be for nothing, and we're going to have to wait even longer, and this may never happen for Cody. But it is interesting. I mean, at least it's weird because like they're killing. I honestly feel like they're killing time until they know if The Rock's going to be available or not, and that's kind of where we're at right now. They're going to try to set it up to where like it would make sense for Cody if it is going to be Cody, but it will also make sense for Cody to do something else potentially if The Rock's available. And one thing I did notice too, I watched Raw on Monday when their first title defense against Owens and Zayn, and Cody like he gave himself a massive bump on the finish. Like he did like a terrible finishing name, by the way. It's like Cody D1, I guess they're calling it. Like,
yeah,
and
Cody 1D.
Cody 1D. I'm sorry.
1D, yeah.
Awful. The actual move's pretty cool though. I mean, it's a 3D Oz cutter, but but with the way Cody, I don't know if anyone else, I'm sure other people caught it, but like he landed on his head, like, and he got like sandwiched on Owen, between him and Owens. And like at the end of that match, Cody like rolled out of the ring, and I was like, is he hurt? Because that was a bad landing, and I think he's okay. But like, just want to point that out there too. That was I don't know how often they'll be doing that move anymore if it's going to keep like kind of ending like that. But
I assume they're going to keep using it. I think I'm going to rewatch the spots just so I can. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, dude, he like gives himself a pile driver.
Oh, this is the one on Balor. They hit it clean at Fast.
Oh, no. On Raw. Look at the one on Raw.
I'm watching the one on Raw. Oh, wait. Oh, here's the one on Raw. Okay. Yeah, he went over too far.
He overturned,
yeah.
But like because of that, he landed on his head and neck, and Owens' weight came right on top of his head. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm not saying they're gonna stop doing the move because of that. I'm just saying do not take yourself out of the equation, Cody, like over this move. like we do not need injuries right now. So but
yeah, he just kind of went too far on it. If you watch the one from Fastlane, he hits it clean at Fastlane. The one on Raw, he just kind of went a little too far on it. Yeah. I think that because when you watch the Fastlane one, he gets up, he hits it on Balor, and then he's doing he's banging his chest and fired up and everything. He was so excited after he hit this move, and then Raw, he just kind of went too far. I think they're going to keep it though. That was just a missed time. It happens. Even to the best, like Cody.
You changed the name of the move though. I mean, that's
the move name. The Cody 1D.
Terrible name. I don't even know what you would call it. That would be better, but I feel like anything would be better than that. Someone in the chat, let us know what's a better name for that finishing move. There's got to be something better than like Cody 1D.
Yeah, I don't know if you just call it like the 1D cutter. I don't think that works. But because they called it the 1D because it's like one and done. It's a 3D Uso cutter.
I don't know. We're going to think about this. I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that is something that by the end of that
Cody and Dunn. They call it the Cody and Dunn.
See, it should be called like the Super 3D or something, but they don't call it the 3D. They call it the 1D, and like it sounds weird with Cody. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So Cody and Jey Uso are the tag team champions, and then at the end of Raw, Owens and Zayn. Like Zayn already was like pretty much in with those guys, but now Owen seems to be as well. Like he's like warmed up to it.
War Games. I mean, we talked about it the other week, and Sean reported that they're sounds like they're going to bring it back, and it looks like that was where they were going. I said it the other week. I'm like, Cody's going to push for this. They've not announced it, but Cody is going to push for this. So I think that's That's where they're going. They're going War Games with this, and that was
Yeah.
a big step to get Kevin Owens on the same page. I love Cody and Jay as the tag team champions. I don't know if you saw the press conference, but them just being drunk.
I was about to say, were they just like baked out of their minds? I saw like a very short clip, and I was like, I couldn't tell if that was alcohol
Cody,
or what, but I was like,
Cody admitted they had some drinks beforehand. If they had more, it would not surprise me. But they'd certainly had some drinks beforehand. It was so good. I love them as a team. And now I guess we'll see them on SmackDown at some point, and then we will see if they tie things together with Roman Reigns. Michael Cole was bitching out Cody on Raw. He's like, got these titles. Are you trying to get back at Roman since you failed at WrestleMania? Like, what do you make of all this? Michael Cole putting Cody in his place.
Not cool, Michael Cole. But it's a pretty good transition though for NXT because Cody was involved in that also. If you want to talk some NXT,
yeah, he announced that they're going to do tournaments that they had already were planning to do. But good on Cody. He's kind of I will say this: Cody's kind of a coward. He was the GM for the night. And he didn't book himself in a title match like a true booker would do. Like, did he not learn from AEW when he took himself out of the title picture because like, I don't want to do that. They admitted that was a mistake. He should have booked himself to, like I said, to win the North American Championship. Kind of cowardly move.
Like he stopped at the North American title there. Like I know it's
he shouldn't beat Ilya. But like, he shouldn't beat Ilya.
No, I agree, but that'd be a great match. I'm a big fan of Ilya Dragunov. I've been a fan of his for quite a while. Yeah, he was a guy who like on the Weekender, you know, I recapped NXT UK the entire time the show from episode 1 to when it ended, and like he was a guy who I've been saying for a while. I'm like, man, Tyler Bate's another one where I'm like, I don't know why it's taking so long, but like these guys are like could be mainstream massive stars on Raw and SmackDown, and they just aren't yet. But like Dragunov, I think that they will heavily push whenever he eventually makes the jump. But yeah, man, it is obviously strange that Cody, like, we've seen him on AEW television talking about how there's no, you know, how like the NXT basically couldn't keep up with the war back when that was going on. And now Cody is being used to counter program against AEW on the night that AEW runs head to head and stuff like that. So it is very bizarre. That is, you know, never say never in wrestling. Yeah. Cody Rhodes on NXT against AEW at the same exact time. That's pretty nuts when you really think about that.
Is it this proof that Cody is the draw though? When he was on AEW television, I'm just feeding into your narrative here, Jensen.
No, sure. No, I'm with you here. I agree 100% there. I mean, because I think you could directly correlate the success of NXT's ratings gap over AEW on Tuesday, specifically 100% because Cody was involved on NXT. I think that's the only reason that it did so well.
The show started off like super. The quarter hour breakdowns from Thurston, like I think 1 million people started off watching the show. And Cody, they had announced that Cody was going to be the person to kick off the show. So they didn't care what AEW was going to open with. They were going to tune in and see Cody. And, you know, when Cody was in AEW, they beat NXT nearly every week and got him kicked off Wednesday. Now Cody goes over. He shows up on NXT. Who won? I think Cody proven that he is the true draw here.
I completely agree with you, Jeremy. You are spitting facts right now, dude. Thank you. You know, you're making my job really easier. I don't even have to. I agree. I don't even have to elaborate on that.
What did you make of like the Undertaker coming in, just laying out Braun Breaker, and
he's coming back.
He tried to put over Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, I think the Undertaker's gonna wrestle again. I said that.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. I said that.
That man can barely move. Can barely move.
I think that it never sat right. Now listen, I'll say this in all transparency. I'm not a big Undertaker guy. Like it isn't even like a personal thing at all. It's just like I was never that into the dead man gimmick. Like his in-ring style and stuff. He's had some really damn good matches and storylines throughout his career. I'm not going to sit here and like trash talk the Undertaker. And he's a lot of people's favorite wrestler, and he's one of the best. If you're talking specifically WWE of all time, he's way up there. Okay, I completely get it. But he's never been like my cup of tea as like a wrestler. He like, even like when he was at his peak, I was always a bigger fan of like other wrestlers around him. But even then, out of like the respect, I was like, man, it seems weird to me that he's retiring after a cinematic match and after retiring in front of the Thunderdome fans and stuff like that. It just never. And I know he got to come back as the American Badass and stuff like that more recently and stuff like that. But and also I saw a backstage video that WWE posted of him and Shawn Michaels at NXT before the show on Tuesday. And Taker was like joking. He's like, I got my gear with me. And Shawn was like, oh, you're not going to need it, man. And he was like, oh, you must have seen my last match. And Shawn was like, no, I didn't. And you could just kind of tell that Taker was probably like kind of fishing for like, Joe, want me to have the last match? Because I'm down, and you get paid a ton of money to do it. And it'd probably only be like 3 minutes long. I do think he'll come back. I legitimately do.
You're running off fans with your Undertaker hatred.
He's kidding. Power Tower finishers. He's an Undertaker fan. I understand that. Listen, I have a good friend, Gemma Jules, who I've interviewed before. She's a massive Undertaker fan. And anytime I bring up anything about like Sting being better than the Undertaker or anything like that, she gets pissed. And
I mean, that's just factual, though.
I agree, but the Undertaker fans might not agree. So, wrong. But anyway, but this is for you, Undertaker fans. I do think he deserves something bigger than a retirement in front of. I know he's always going to be WWE legend and always be involved in some way, shape, or form. But he deserves better than like the send off in front of nobody and the match in front of nobody. I do think that. Whether it's Braun Breaker or whoever, I think he's going to come in at least one more time, and it'll be a really short match. And he'll get paid a lot of money, and then that way he can at least feel better that like he had a last match in front of like an actual like stadium or arena full of people.
I kind of agree with you in that like it might be just like a Mania thing. I wouldn't do it. I don't like when they do this to the young talent because everyone looks at it, and this is what they're trying to say with Braun Breaker. It is basically of like, oh, this was big for Braun Breaker, he got the rub from the Undertaker. I don't think that it works like that. I don't think it helps the talent to get beat up by these old dudes. I just don't. Like, if you want to go in there and do like a promo segment and stuff, that's fine. But like they get laid out, and how often did they come back around and it be good for them? Like it doesn't always work out. Like Elias, everyone thought, oh, Elias is getting this moment with Cena, Undertaker. How'd that work for him? Where did that go? Austin Theory always getting this moment with John Cena. Where is he at? I think Grayson Waller is very talented. I think he might be able to overcome some of this stuff, but he's kind of in that same boat of like, yeah, he's sharing the ring with these guys, but he's getting beat up by these guys most of the time. So I wouldn't do like that with Grayson Waller at WrestleMania, but I could see them doing something like that with Grayson Waller at WrestleMania of, oh, Grayson Waller effect. Oh, here comes the Undertaker, lay him out, pin him. That's it. And then it's like, oh, that's great. So I don't like the Miz is somebody who that's an established guy who is not like an up and comer and people are like, oh, this is the future of the business type of thing. The Miz can go out there and take these short little L's and then bounce back because he's the Miz. When it's these younger guys who people see as like Braun Breaker, future WrestleMania main eventer type of thing, just feels like they should be treated a little bit better on that. A little bit better on that. That's just,
no, I understand. I'm with you 100% on that, especially if there's not going to be like a better payoff for these guys. Like, it's kind of counterproductive. And I even see people like there's a lot of Undertaker fans in the chat, and I respect that they're standing up for him. I think that I thought the Boneyard match with AJ was good, by the way. I'm not saying it was bad. I just think it's obviously different than having a final match, like an actual match in front of people. We got a super chat, big one here.
Yeah, Will says, should have got drunk Cody, drunk Jay on NXT. Agreed. Become MVP for one night. You did love that they made use of Jay as a free agent, and the Pillman Jr. promo was good. I like that Jade is just kind of showing up, doing her own little thing, and we will see where she actually ends up. Because she was at Fastlane at the preview show. She was on NXT And now we'll see if she just she should step to Roman Reigns on SmackDown. Just be like, you acknowledge me. Be great.
I think it's more likely that she joins with them. I think she can be a Heyman girl.
She did tease that. I mean, that ain't happening right now because it's all bloodline stuff, and Jade Cargill is not bloodline. But
either is Paul Heyman. I mean, technically,
but Paul Heyman's been involved with that family for decades, and that's why it makes sense. Like Jade is not involved at all, unless we just don't know something.
I'm just saying, like, there have been people outside of the family. But,
but Sami Zayn took that up a notch. I don't think Jade is the person who's going to kick that to a different level.
I understand. I'm with you. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen either, but I do think it's kind of a cool idea. And also, it's worth mentioning, of course, that as Dylan is mentioning in the chat, Carmelo got endorsed by Undertaker. I mean, Carmelo Hayes he should have a bright future. I mean, I liked him as Christian Casanova, once again, pre-WWE. He's had a lot of potential for a long time. It's good to see him. It's good to see WWE seems to be behind him. I don't think you pair him up with Cena and have the Undertaker endorse him if you don't have plans for him. So,
see, that's a more of a bigger, like, okay, this guy, we kind of see a brighter future in than Braun Breaker, who gets cut down by Cena. I guess Cena was like, this is a teachable moment. I'm not going to cut you down and tell you that you are a failure and that they got to bring guys like me and Cody back to NXT because you can't carry this company. So I do think that, and then getting laid out by the Undertaker, I think Carmelo Hayes got a bigger endorsement than Braun Breaker did on that. And one last thing on the Jade being like a Heyman girl, it doesn't work, especially if Heyman is still like doing bloodline stuff, because we saw that with Claudio Cesaro while Heyman was also trying to manage Brock Lesnar, and there was a huge disconnect, and it did absolutely nothing for Cesaro when he should have gone on to bigger things after winning the Andre Battle Royal. And
agreed. And
he didn't.
George, no, you're 100% right. I was actually alive for I was live in the building when he won the Andre, and then the next night when he became a Heyman guy, I was there live for all that. It was huge, and then they just dropped the ball completely with it. George Scott also mentioned that Ava Ray may be a Heyman girl. I always forget. Yeah, it's The Rock's daughter. She's there. I mean,
they did tease that as well, of like Heyman showing her the back of his phone case, which has Bloodline on it. At least that makes sense. Ava Ray is actually Bloodline, so that one makes sense on that. Overall, though, NXT. Did you see the Pillman Jr. stuff? And now he is Lexus King.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, I feel like it's somewhat of a missed opportunity to not call him, Brian Pillman Jr. because the WWE audience knows his dad. But like, obviously they look very similar. And I know that the story here is like that he's using a different name because of that. Like, because it's like it's like the people who really raised him kind of situation is what it seems like. I have not seen the promo, to be fair. I've seen some of the transcript from it. I've seen like a screen, like a still image of it, but I haven't heard it yet and watched it yet. But that seems to be the gist, unless I'm misunderstanding, is that like basically his dad didn't raise him, so he's using the names of the people who really did.
Yeah. And it's also that, like, I didn't know my dad because he was basically wrestling, and wrestling destroyed my dad and it destroyed me, but I'm coming back to the business that has caused me this pain, but I'm not going to be my father type of thing. So it's an interesting take on it. I don't know if it's the correct take until I see how it plays. I was never super high on Brian Pillman Jr. Like, his AEW work didn't like stand out to me above anything else. His best stuff was just MJF running him down, and he couldn't really fight back from any of that. And then the match with MJF was what it was. Like, nothing really stood out of Brian Pillman Jr. being like, this guy's got it, outside of he's Brian Pillman Jr. So now they're taking that away. Does that make it better? We shall see. If he can be able to, if he's able to adapt and he's able to make something out of it and can make people forget that, hey, I'm Brian Pillman Jr., then it could be a good thing. I do want to bring this up. Was that WWE's call on the name change? Has WWE been big on promoting Pillman's legacy? They haven't put Brian Pillman like on this giant pedestal or anything. I think it was probably a collaborative idea because, I mean, look at Ava Raine, Simone Johnson. She went with Ava Raine. Everyone was like, huh? Why wouldn't you just be Simone Johnson? Why wouldn't you be The Rock's daughter? She wanted to go in a completely different direction. I do think that there is part of the performer who doesn't want that attachment to their family, because then the expectations are going to be what they're going to be. And so I think some performers might just be like, you know what, like, instead of always having this comparison, because you're always going to have it, let me just go in a different direction with this.
Yeah. And it was the same for Braun Breaker. I think Braun said himself that like he specifically wanted to have a different name, just like so it was all on him pretty much. Like, and then it kind of turned out kind of good anyway because of certain stuff like that he wasn't associated. You know, we won't get into all that, but it's kind of a good thing that he isn't like y'all know. Anyway, I think Braun Breaker is very talented. I don't hold anything against him, obviously, for things that people in his family may have said and stuff like that. But it's kind of a good thing that he's his own guy. You know, it just kind of feels like it worked out good that he's Braun Breaker and not, Rex Steiner at the moment or whatever. So
Rex Steiner was a cool name, though.
It was a really cool name, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Like, yeah. So it's kind of good that there's not the association there with that at the moment, especially. So don't want any black clouds over somebody who has nothing to do with something their dad's saying,
Yeah.
So.
It was weird that he wanted to use his stepdad's name because of everything. I saw a lot of people pointing that out. That doesn't seem like that relationship was great either. So we'll see what they do with Brian Pillman Jr. My expectations are pretty low for a number of reasons, but yes, they're low. Anything else from NXT Mania, NXT WrestleMania? They loaded up the show.
No, I think we covered pretty much everything that we needed to. Pretty good. Solid week for WWE. A moral victory as well, having the W in the ratings and the demo. NXT over AEW. Good for them.
All right, Jeff Driver wanted us to address that because everyone always wants your thoughts on this, Stephen Jensen.
On what?
Jensen going to address WWE turning down Punk.
I mean, is that how legitimate? Like, is that really what's happening? This isn't worth putting the graphic up. Probably. Listen, I'll say this. I did see. Was it? You're going to have to let me know, Jeremy. Was it Sean that reported this that I'm about to talk about? There's
been a lot of reports about this. I think the report of like WWE turned him down did come from Dave. I think that was
okay.
Dave,
but what about the report
putting out there the definitive WWE turned him down?
What about the like a WWE talent had said that this like CM Punk, like he wouldn't be able to pull the same stuff in that locker room? Would you know
I believe that was Sean. I will double check on that, but I do believe that was Sean.
Now, if there's truth to that, I did think that was pretty funny, obviously, because what I had seen was somebody had reported that like they had spoken to WWE talent and they had said if CM Punk comes here, like we're in a locker room full of people that are just gonna beat him up. Like if he swings at us, like we're just gonna kick his ass, basically. Like it's just not those things are just not going to happen here. So I did think that was pretty funny, and probably accurate as well. I don't want to go down the CM Punk rabbit hole. We don't have time for it. And you already know how I feel about the guy. And you might hear a little something in this interview coming up that might allude to, it a little bit too. But like, I think that he couldn't pull that stuff. I mean, here's the thing. All these WWE fans and CM Punk fans that are so optimistic about him returning to WWE if he was going to, are like, see, he wouldn't be able to do that in WWE. And it's like, well, he already did. Like he wasn't swinging on people the last time probably because, those people are all bigger than him, but when he's in an environment, with people that are smaller than he is, that have no fighting experience, I think he feels comfortable swinging on people or, having these confrontations with people. And I still think that would happen in the WWE, but even in the WWE, once again, all it would take would be him getting angry again and leaving and not coming back. I mean, that's what happened last time. He was in the WWE, he just quit. So, I mean, do WWE fans and Punk fans really want that to happen? He gets halfway through a big storyline in the WWE and then just takes his ball and goes home because he's butthurt over something. Like, what does that accomplish for anybody? You know what I mean? That's kind of how I imagine it would ultimately pan out. So to hear that WWE apparently doesn't want him there, honestly, isn't surprising at all, because why would you? You get a very short ratings bump, and then his in-ring talent will not match the in-ring talent of most people on the show, and you have the liability of him potentially getting in arguments, literally fighting people and then quitting the company or getting fired during his contract and causing problems backstage, and having to be around people that already don't like him because of previous experiences they've already had with him. So I just don't see why you would deal with him at all, personally.
So this is the quote. It was from Sean. It's on Fightful Select, best $5 in the business, or best $51 per year in the business. One top star said that Punk knows, quote, he wouldn't be able to pull any of his shit here. There's nobody here he could jump without getting his ass handed to him. So,
that's facts. That's 100% facts. And and most of the AEW locker room wouldn't have a problem with him either. But I think a lot of them were afraid to lose their jobs because he's, Tony Khan's favorite wrestler. It was a bad spot to be in if you were against CM Punk while he was in AEW. And once again, I think a lot of these fights and stuff were happening because these people were smaller than him with no experience in fighting. You can't that WWE locker room. Think of the top stars in that company and what most of those people look like and their backgrounds. And yes, Punk has no chance. You can sit here and talk all day about CM Punk training at Rufus Sport for the better part of a decade, training with the Pettis brothers, fighting in the UFC and all that stuff. The dude can't fight, and that's just a fact. Anyway, we can move on to another topic.
We had Jeff Valley Driver, friend of the show. He's always very supportive, so we had to address that. Thank you, Jeff Valley Driver.
Appreciate that, Jeff.
Let's move on to our other spotlight.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
MLW Slaughterhouse this Saturday, October 14th. It's on Fight Plus. They got a big show headlined by Alex Kane defending the world heavyweight title against David Boy Smith Jr. They got Minoru Suzuki against Jacob Fatu as well. They got Delmi Exo against a phantom mystery opponent. We shall see who they're able to bring in on that. Spin the wheel, make the deal with Second Gear Crew and the Calling. The big matches on the show as well. What are you looking forward to on this show, Jensen?
Man, there's a lot of good stuff because they're also doing like tapings for Fusion that night too. So like Matt Cardona versus a mystery opponent, it'll be good seeing him in MLW doing his thing. He's killing it everywhere he's at. I'm looking forward to Hot Sauce Tracy Williams versus Griffin McCoy. A lot of people don't know Griffin, but he's been killing it on the indies for a while, especially in companies like JCW. He was a part of Young, Dumb, and Broke with Jordan Oliver and those dudes. And like, he's ready to, I feel like he's on the brink of like really having like some breakout moments. And Tracy Williams is a great opponent to have a great match against. So I think that way more people are going to know about Griffin McCoy coming out of like these tapings and like Fusion coming up and stuff. And also shout out to my boy O'Shea Edwards. He'll be on the tapings as well as a part of the Bomaye Fight or the Bomaye Fight Club. I think that O'Shea is super slept on. He was a guy who I thought had a lot of potential, and I loved his indie work. I got to see him a lot in the Southeast, like Sup Graps and SCI and that kind of stuff. But he had a short run in Ring of Honor before it like shut down, and I thought he had a lot of potential there as a part of Shane Taylor Promotions. So I'm glad to see him doing well in MLW. I'm a big O'Shea guy. And they're wrestling the main event, who is a really accomplished indie tag team, Jay Lyon and Midas Black. So really good stuff from like an indie perspective too, even just on like the pre-show of this. Delmi Exo, I'm imagining she's going to retain her featherweight title regardless of who the opponent is. It was supposed to be Becca, and so that's why we're at a mystery opponent because Becca had to pull off. I mean, the Chamber. I don't even
know who they bring in for this spot. Like, I'm trying to rack my brain of who's possible, and there's good talent on we're going to talk about some of the women's independent talent here in a second when we get to the Revolver Women's Grand Prix. Like, there's good talent. I don't even know who they might bring in on this. Do you have any thoughts of who could maybe be? Because I feel like the names that come to my mind are kind of already like signed. Like, Billie's not coming in or anything. I don't know if Trisha Dora is signed.
I know. I was thinking about her too, but she's in Ring of Honor often too. So I don't know if she has any kind of deal with them. What's Jordan Grace's status? Is she with Impact again?
She's with Impact.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah, she's with Impact. Vert Vixen was just on AEW television. I don't think she's signed though. Allison Kay, maybe. I don't know. I don't think she signed anywhere. But yeah, like there's so much talent that's like it feels like a lot of them is signed.
They need to hit up NWA and just work something out to get Kenzie Page in there. That would be like my like preferable. Like if they could get like champion versus champion or something. Like
yeah, I don't know if either of them.
Well, I know it's unlikely, but I'm just trying to think like just something that would be like kind of big, you know, like like we mentioned Lady Frost in the chat, but I think she's with Ring of Honor, AEW. I don't know the actual status of these people's contracts though and how available they are. So that's hard. I don't know who's available, so that's why I don't know who could even do the show. But there's a lot of talented women out there. It's just,
I mean, we bring her up all the time. Sawyer Wreck.
Yeah, she's kind of like not in that world though. You really only see her in like the GCW and like I mean you see her a little around the indies, but I mean I could see her in that spot though. That'd be interesting against Delmi Exo. I don't know. I really don't know who's gonna fill that role. Because I just don't know who's available to be able to do it. But I think just for what it's worth, I think Delmi Exo versus Kenzie Page would be a really, really good match. I kind of have that like stuck in my head now because Kenzie's doing so great in the NWA. She's like one of the I know a lot of people don't like the NWA product. I understand that, but she's a star. Like people should at least be paying attention to her. Anyway, yeah, I don't know, but I imagine Delmi Exo will retain. And then RSP versus Manders, I think is going to be really damn good. And it'd be a huge win for Manders, but I think they'll keep the title on RSP. Like I expect the SGC to win Chamber of Horrors. I think Justice and Mance are going to win the Chamber of Horrors match. But like, I think the calling is still going to have a pretty good night where I think RSP is going to retain the national openweight title and Akira is going to retain the middleweight title and also in the historic NWA welterweight title. See, that's another thing. There is kind of a crossover there. The NWA is involved kind of with Rocky Romero having that title on the line.
That's more like a CMLL.
It is. It isn't. It isn't. You're right. I mean, historically, especially, most of the champions are of Hispanic descent, and stuff, and defend the title like in Mexico and stuff. But
SB3, FIFO substitute teacher in the chat, MLW just made a deal with CMLL, so I expect Stephanie Vacker, who was incrable, had the great match with Mercedes Moné. Resurgence is coming over. CMLL has a bunch of female talent. I was thinking, I'm not well versed on CMLL, but I was thinking it could be a CMLL talent, and I know people are high on a Vacker, so it could be her. It certainly could. Yeah.
So these are all good shouts, and also we got a dream match between Suzuki and Fatu. That's going to be a badass match. Suzuki obviously just had a war with Eddie Kingston, and Fatu's in the spot where he was the longtime MLW World Heavyweight Champion. He was then the National Openweight Champion, and he's been heavily involved as if not their main guy, one of their main guys for years and years now. So if he's not going to be involved in a title, at least he's got a big match against Suzuki that should get a lot of attention, should be a good match. And I fully expect Alex Kane to retain the MLW Heavyweight Championship over Davey Boy Jr. in the main event. But I think it's going to be a really good match. And I think it's interesting, Don King is the promoter for Boom IA. It's so weird seeing Don King on MLW television, promoting Alex Kane's matches. For people who don't know, Don King was he was the famous, Mike Tyson boxing promoter and stuff. But in recent years, when I see Don King, usually I've seen him promoting boxing matches in recent years that are in there might be 20 fans in the building, and he's out on the microphone, just yelling and trying to hype the fights up, and nobody cares. But it's really cool to see he's actually way better served in MLW than what I've been seeing him doing in boxing in recent years. So it's actually kind of cool that the tie-in there for fight fans. So, but I'm looking forward to Slaughterhouse. I think it's gonna be a good MLW show. It'll be on Fight Plus. It'll be live. So I mean, there you go. Shout out to MLW doing the right things, putting on live events that we can watch, and the Fusion episodes will air just within a couple of weeks of the tapings on 6 months from the tapings like it used to be. And this is how you keep momentum for your company and keep people interested in watching the shows. This is all good stuff.
We got an interview with Alex Kane up on Fightful Overbooked. If anybody wants to go check that out, he was on In the Weeds yesterday. We're supposed to have another MLW guest tomorrow on In the Weeds. I hate saying it because I always think things are going to fall through. So
I do the same. I hate advertising who we're going to talk to before we do, because sometimes it does fall through.
Yeah. So we're hopeful. Everything MLW has been good to us. They've never everything's always worked out when it comes to guests, so I don't have any reason to believe that it won't work out. But again, you never know with these things. It is a pretty big guest in the world of MLW, though. We just had the World Heavyweight Champion on, so everyone can go check out that interview if you would like. And yeah, check out Slaughterhouse this Saturday. I will not watch it live. I will be at Collision on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I'll be dual screening, I'm sure. I'm sure I'll watch everything I can.
I will hopefully be watching Bryan Danielson win the TNT title live. That's the hope.
There you go.
I want to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Indie Spotlight, we just kind of mentioned it. Billie Starkz winning the Wrestling Revolver Women's Grand Prix. She defeated Marina Shafir in the finals. On her run there, she defeated Trish Adora and Rachel Armstrong. Jensen, I mean, Billie Starkz is signed. She's confirmed she's signed to AEW. Obviously, a nice little feather in her cap to win this. And good on women's Wrestling Revolver for basically doing an all-women's show there and doing this Grand Prix. And they got Jordan Grace, who can sign to Impact. Impact and Revolver have a good relationship, even though Callahan is now a free agent. Like, a lot of Impact talent comes over to Revolver, and I hope that continues because I think Revolver is doing a lot of really good stuff on the independent scene.
Yeah, I agree, and you know, Rachel Armstrong, one of Billie's opponents, she's been doing really, really well lately. Like, she won the CNC Invitational Future Showcase earlier this year. Mouse actually is who got her on my radar. Like, he was talking her up a lot before I heard anyone talk about Rachel Armstrong, and she's going to be someone to really keep your eyes on. But yeah, Billie killing it. I mean, what's there to say about Billie Starkz that has already been said? I mean, I think she's going to be like the biggest star in wrestling. It's inevitable. She's already well on her way there. Also really cool because, you know, Renee Paquette and John Moxley were involved in this too. Like, they came out and, you know, handed the trophy to Billie and celebrated for or with her and stuff. And like, they made a really big deal out of this. And it's just cool seeing people like Moxley want to be involved, you know, on their time off. People like Renee want to be involved on their time off. Like, that's huge. That's absolutely humongous for indie wrestling. I mean, and yeah, I mean, this is a great tournament. Like, there's a lot of great talent in this thing. I know that there's a lot of like talk pretty often about like AEW specifically, like them not having enough women's matches, or like certain companies not showcasing women's wrestling as much as you'd like. Even floating ideas about all women shows, and really just you know, shows for like specific backgrounds in general, like to like highlight, you know, specific talents and stuff like that. You know, I'm obviously not against any of this stuff. I think they're like shows like For the Culture have been like super successful in highlighting like African American talent. There have been all women shows like this that I think are really important and highlight all female talent. And I guess my point in saying all this is like, we are so lucky to live in this world of wrestling right now, where like, even if you're a huge women's wrestling fan and you're a diehard AEW fan and you're sitting there and you're frustrated because you're like, damn, like, you're just not showing enough of the women I want to be seeing in the ring. I understand that 100%, but like, pop on Wrestling Revolver. Like, there's an entire show worth of phenomenal female talent right there that you can watch. You know, like there's so many options. You know, should there be more representation across the board? Sure. Like, I'm not arguing that, but I'm just saying, like, there are some really damn good all women shows and stuff like that available. It's just, you gotta know about them. You gotta find them, seek them out. But when you got someone like Billie Starkz, who's doing so well, who's become so popular, winning stuff like this too, it draws eyes to it. People go, man, I know a lot of people didn't know about Billie before Ring of Honor. And now they're sitting there going, I've seen Billie on Ring of Honor. She's like Athena's protege. Wait, what's she doing? She won this tournament over here. They turned the tournament on and they're like, wait, who's Trish Adora? Who's Vert Vixen? Well, they've probably seen Trish Adora on Ring of Honor, but you know what I mean? There's who's Rachel Armstrong? You know, who are these people? And like, all of a sudden you become a fan of this whole show full of women, you know?
I mean, the Billie Starkz Athena stuff is by far the best thing going on ROH TV, because at least the champion is on ROH
right.
TV and involved in an actual storyline, not just, hey, here's a match for the sake of doing a match this week. Yeah, that's by far the best stuff on ROH TV. Congrats to Billie Starkz. And, you know, we've talked her up plenty on this show. And she's going to continue to be one of the biggest stars in wrestling in the next decade. So, Jensen, I know you got to run. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yes. You can find me on Twitter or X. I just realized our graphics aren't on here. Handles. I guess we can add that next week. We got some new graphics. There you go.
And you can just put your McKinnon. Yes, that's a hockey reference.
I see. Yeah. Okay. But I do. I thank you, Gisberto, for the new graphics and stuff too. I think this looks great. So you can find me on X or Twitter or whatever. Fight Talk _ FIGHTTALK _ Use code Fight Talk. All is one word, no spaces on independentwrestling.tv. Just lets the platform know that I'm sending you their way. You can listen to the Fightful Select Weekender podcast. That's usually on Sundays, sometimes on Mondays, depending on the Vikings football schedule, what I'm doing with my family over the weekend during the football season, and if like GCW or other, there's a lot of indies running like big Sunday shows right now because they used to run Saturdays and they don't want to go head to head with Collision now. So like they're doing their shows on Sundays instead. So that has been pushing the weekender to like later Sunday nights or having to record them on Mondays. So that's just full transparency for anyone who might notice that my upload schedule is a little weird for that show during the football season. It's all of those factors. But the main factor, honestly, is that a lot of the indie shows that I want to cover are running on Sundays now, and I have to have the time to watch the show, know what's going on, and be able to talk about it on the weekender. But you can check that out on FightfulSelect.com. I mainly just cover the world of indie wrestling. I probably recapped like 12 indie shows on this past episode. So check that out. And I think that's everything I've got. Enjoy this interview you're about to hear with Matt Makowski. Dude was awesome. He's an MMA fighter, or technically a former MMA fighter, but implements a lot of his MMA style into professional wrestling. He's a fantastic pro wrestler. This is a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Good guy. I'm very much a Matt Makowski fan. So Jeremy, it was good to see you, man. Good to see the chat. I'm going to go clock in for the shoot job, and you guys have a great day and a great weekend, and you'll hear from me next. Actually, you know what? You'll hear from me next. I don't want to forget to plug this Saturday morning. I don't know what time we're going to do. Probably 9:30 in the morning. You don't even know, I guess. Me and SP3
I don't know any of these things.
Me and SP3 are doing Degrassi Dudes this Saturday morning.
Okay, I'm glad you told me because I like to upload interviews and stuff.
I know. I thought I already told you, but like, because me and him, we schedule it so far in advance that like by the time it comes around, I'm like, oh shit, that's this Saturday. So, this Saturday morning, I believe it'll be like 9:30 in the morning. So just so you know, Fightful overbooked. Me and SP3 will be. Are you cool with us doing it live that morning?
I don't care. No, okay, cool. I never care when you guys do this. I just need to know from my own scheduling.
No, I know. I understand. I completely forgot that we didn't keep you in the loop this time. But anyway, we'll be live on Fightful Overbooked Saturday morning. I think at like 9:30 in the morning, and we'll tweet out links before we go live. And it'll be a talk probably about like Degrassi. We like to talk about that show together and a bunch of like 90s stuff. So it'll be a good conversation, a nostalgic conversation for all you like 80s and 90s kids, early 2000 kids out there. So once again, I'm already late for work. I'm probably going to get complained at for showing up late, but it was worth it to plug the stuff that's going on, I guess. Once again, good seeing you, Jeremy. Good seeing the chat. You guys have a good day.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks as always, Jensen. There you go. We'll get into our interview with Matt Makowski. Yes, follow me on X at FightTalk _. Get into our interview with Matt Makowski, who is very, very generous. We went about 52 minutes, talked about his MMA career. He fought in Strikeforce, EliteXC back in the day, back when that was kind of the number 2 brand in America, fought for Bellator, early days of Bellator as well, and now transitioned into professional wrestling. Talked about competing at Bloodsport, ROH before they went on hiatus, his goals in wrestling, different techniques and stuff. So a very fun interview with Matt Makowski. Everyone can go support him. The links are below. And now we will get into it, guys. From the world of independent professional wrestling, you may have seen him on ROH during the pandemic. If you were watching ROH during the pandemic, you may have seen him on JCW this past weekend. He was on the Pumpkin Spice show this past weekend. Or GCW, the Bloodsport shows. Here we go. Matt Makowski, everybody.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is a former MMA fighter, a current professional wrestler. He is the evolution of combat, the king of the cross arm breaker, Weapon X, Matt Makowski, joining the show today. Matt, thanks for joining us. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You're someone we wanted to have on for a while because I'm a big MMA fan and a big pro wrestling fan. So like you're in both of those worlds, successful in both of those worlds. Before we get into all that, it's great to have you back in wrestling, man. After that long layoff and that injury, it's really great to see you back, dude.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the road to recovery like? Because I know I've seen you tweet about that a bit. Like I know it was a bit of a struggle to get back and kind of like a long road.
Yeah. I mean, torn ACL is never an easy injury. I don't believe. And I wanted to make sure I didn't come back. I'd rather come back too late than too early. I'll be 37 in a week. So, I, another kind of big thing like that might kind of spell the end, for me. I don't know, but, I just kind of made sure I had all my ducks in a row before I got back in the ring.
Yeah. Was that something you dealt with kind of like, I mean, being 37, you had a whole MMA career, prior to this big, wrestling run you're on. Is that something you've always kind of dealt with like throughout MMA, kind of throughout your whole life through training, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like dealing with injuries and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's going to come with the territory when it comes to combat sports or just physical sports in general. And then aging, like I watch a lot of, I'm a big sports fan all around. Like football is probably my favorite thing. I kind of grew up playing football in my youth, and yeah, just like the injury report after, I play like fantasy, right? And it's like the injury report after each week is like, oh my gosh, torn this, torn that. This guy broke his leg. It's like, it's like, oof. And watching like mixed martial arts now or combat sports in general is a little tough for me because I'm just like every hit is like, I'm just like, oh no. But yeah, it comes with it. It comes with the territory. It's something you're gonna have to deal with. So I've been through, I dealt with stuff in high school, and and then my MMA career was actually relatively injury free. Well, yeah, for the most part, until the end, I guess, and then yeah, I just got into pro wrestling, and it really wasn't because of pro wrestling that I got injured. It was just a kind of a freak thing, and like I was doing a judo throw in a match, and my knee just wasn't having that. So, just kind of a freak thing, and I've had a good handful of matches since I've been back. I feel great, and just kind of keep on going till the wheels fall off here.
I want to ask about the transition from MMA to pro wrestling. What made you kind of go that direction?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I could probably talk for a bit about that, but the short story is, kind of getting out of MMA in 2010. I basically just needed something new for myself. I kind of went a few years just kind of doing what I was doing. I was coaching at a gym, doing personal training, just kind of just getting by, I guess. And I kind of fell into like a pretty deep depression, and it just like I didn't really have anything going on. I had always thought I would always like kind of like maybe I could try wrestling. Like I grew up watching wrestling as a kid. I kind of fell back in love with it in the late 2000s through Chikara in Philadelphia, and I don't know. I would always kind of go to like wrestling school websites and like just peruse and like check it out, and then finally the Wrestle Factory in Philly would do these like a free thing, like a trial class or basically. And I was like, what do I have to lose? I'm gonna check this out. And I went there, and it was like, I was like, this is great. This is awesome. It's just like a lot of it's like just like jujitsu or like a martial arts class. It's very similar, and like roll, like all the basics, like rolling and break falling and like bumping, as we would call it in wrestling, right? So I don't know, it just kind of clicked, and it was like this new frontier for me. And I was like, it kind of really pulled me out of this funk that I was in my life. And, I like to credit pro wrestling for really kind of pulling me out of this. I mean, you could talk to my wife and everything about how I was in those little, like, I call it like the dark ages, but, so yeah, wrestling kind of pulled me out of the dark ages. And, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the main like transition in terms of my life. But, as far as like maybe more like the sports end of it, I was watching people like, Tom Lawler, Shayna Baszler, there's even some like Dom Guarini, who's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. Obviously Ronda Rousey was, when did she start? Like mid 2010s or whatever, like 2015, 2016. Is that when she started? Anyway, it was something around that time. And, Riddle too, and I'm like, this is something I've always wanted to try. And again, I was like, let me give this a shot. And, I went to that free class where I had nothing to lose. And then from there, it was like, I didn't have to commit to anything crazy in terms of like tuition at the school. There was like it was basically a 7-week like beginner course that was like, $200 or something. And I was like, hey, this was fun. Let me try this, So, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then a couple of months later, I kind of signed up for like full-time training. And yeah, that's kind of pretty much how that got started.
Some of the names you mentioned, like Filthy Tom Lawler, for instance. I know you wrestled him, and if I remember correctly, y'all were building to a rematch prior to your injury in BLP, I believe.
Yeah, that was a match that was scheduled before I got hurt. Yeah.
What's it like actually wrestling him? Like you saw him make that transition, because I remember him as like a top 5 like light heavyweight in the UFC, and he was always like the flamboyant, flashy. Like Dana White hated him because he would come out like the funny ring gear with the funny entrance music and stuff like that. And then he was like the perfect person to make the move into pro wrestling with his skill set and his kind of a whole presentation and his character and everything.
Yeah, no, Tom's great. I mean, we chat from time to time. And yeah, getting to wrestle him was basically a bucket list thing for me in terms of my wrestling career. So I can't thank BLP enough for making that happen. And yeah, I mean, to be able to wrestle him a second time was going to be amazing. And yeah, it just kind of fell through there because of the injury and everything.
Well, there should be plenty more opportunities for that. I mean, you guys are in similar circles all over the world of the indies. And I love the transition, like, or just the way you incorporate MMA into pro wrestling, especially like, let's say your moveset and everything. I mean, you may be the first person we've ever interviewed, and you're on a short list anyways that would even have this, where you have a Sherdog page and, a cage match page. Yeah. So I mean, it's wild. Like, I mean, for people who might not know this, you rear naked Joe Schilling. I mean, that's like pretty badass. Even just like have that on your resume in general.
Yeah, thanks. That's one of my like feathers in my cap. But a lot of wrestling fans, they don't know who Joe Schilling is, but like that was huge for me in the moment. He wasn't even. I knew he was like super dangerous. I don't think he was world champion. I think he became world champion after I fought him in mixed martial arts. But yeah, there's this joke that a buddy of mine, since he knocked out Melvin Manhoff, it's like a Kevin Bacon thing where it's like, I beat Fedor.
Yeah. So right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Melvin beat so-and-so who beat so-and-so who beat Fedor or something. And yeah, I don't know. I always kind of joke about that, but yeah, Joe, that was a huge fight for me. That was like my second fight. I mean, my pro wrestling career has mirrored my MMA career a lot in a lot of ways, in terms of like, my MMA career wasn't very long, but I did a lot of cool stuff, or stuff I'm very proud of in a short period of time. And it's very similar with wrestling. I accomplished a lot of the stuff I wanted to do, like within like I'm not bragging about this at all, and I had humble goals, but like within the first 6 months, I was on Shakar's King of Trios. I was in Bloodsport, and I wrestled at Beyond Wrestling, and those were 3 of my big indie wrestling goals. So I mean, honestly, everything after this has been kind of like icing on the cake. I'm just trying to just rolling with the punches and doing the best I can. But yeah, I mean, most people, I'm glad you brought up Joe Schilling before bringing up the Nick Serra thing, because that's usually what I get. But but yeah,
I mean, if you want to elaborate that on that as well, they absolutely can. I mean, Joe Schilling. I mean, if people don't even know who he is, he's been on like Joe Rogan show. And stuff. I mean, he's become very well known. And for people who don't know, he's a world champion kickboxer who did have some MMA fights, and you defeated him in MMA with a rear naked choke, which is yes, I mean, just that is. No one else on the show has ever choked out Joe Schilling. That's for sure. So,
I was gonna bring up the Nick Serra fight kind of in a different way, and just that like you were part of those EliteXC days when they were like a kind of a true challenger brand, and like what they were doing was a lot of pro wrestling mixed into it. I mean, the Kimbo Slice, the
with the promotion for sure.
Yes, like the big like kind of wrestling stage. I borrowed a lot of elements from Pride and everything. I went to a lot of those EliteXC shows. I was there when Fedor knocked out Brett Rogers, Fedor and Giant Silva. I was at that show. Like I was at a bunch of these shows, and Kimbo, and I was not at Kimbo and Thompson. I was at the infamous Kimbo Petrozelli fight. Yes,
that was supposed to be Shamrock, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Shamrock.
That was cut in the back beforehand. Or something crazy. Yeah,
that was a crazy night. But you were part of the first EliteXC primetime show, and like what happened in the fight, but just like being part of that, like what are your memories from that?
It was pretty incredible. I came out wearing Legion of Doom shoulder pads. By the way,
I remember this.
Yeah. And I made like a mask out of plastic that was like his face paint, and it was just, it's always been in me like a little bit, like at least the fandom. I think I did the Triple H water spit when I came out, like, but yeah, really cool stage, long walkway to the ring. Presentation was awesome. And I just, I was a blue belt at the time, and I was fighting an accomplished jiu-jitsu practitioner. I realized he's not the greatest mixed martial arts fighter, but in a grappling match, he probably would have beat me 10 out of 10. So I had been training my balls off in like submission defense, and obviously my striking was much better than his. But yeah, it was a big fight for me. It was a former world champion's brother. I know he's not his brother, but it's it was a big deal for me at the time. Like I'm like 20 years old, and yeah, it was, the people like shit on that fight now, and a lot of weird stuff. It's been on a lot of crazy compilations, like weirdest MMA finishes and stuff like that because of the way it ended. Which I think it's weird because I think people don't. I hit him, I kick him in the leg, then he sits down. But the way the camera cuts, it looks like he just sits down randomly. So I think people don't realize that I kicked him, then he sat. But I'm just putting it out there.
Because what you're getting at, to be fair, what you're getting at is basically a TKO from a leg kick versus DQ by not standing up, basically.
Well, so, I mean, you guys watch mixed martial arts, and this is 2008. Mixed martial arts, as we know, it's still, relatively new. It's just getting on. That was the first nationally televised event, right? That match was on the undercard, but so like people are probably like, why leg kicks? They're still not very like, it's not really like a thing that's that the common fight fan is aware of or realizes can maybe end a fight. So yeah, I always took it as a TKO via leg kicks. And I know on ShareDog, that's probably the biggest thing. On ShareDog, it's listed as DQ, refusal to get up from butt scoop. Yeah, and that's why it gets so much attention. But it was a TKO via, like, I don't know. I guess it was, but I don't know. Kevin Mulhall was the ref. Great ref. He had warned him earlier. I think because he wouldn't get up earlier because I didn't want to go down into his guard. I wasn't trying to like grapple with the guy.
Sure.
So I'm like, get up, and then the second time he like didn't get up, so Mulhall disqualified him. I don't know where the whole DQ refusal to get up from butt scoot thing came from, but
that's got to be the most hilarious like way of victory, though.
Yeah,
like, just
really.
as a listing, if somebody is just like reading that, like,
of course, that's why it's made so many lists.
Yes,
It comes up like every other year now. Some MMA YouTuber will make a video about the weirdest MMA finishes, and I'm on it. Someone will tag me in it or send it to me, and I'm like, yeah, I know. It's so funny though. I was 3-0 after that, and then kind of got like thrown to the wolves a little bit with my next fight. Eric Apple, who's 9-1, his only loss was to a former WEC welterweight champion. I think I got promoted after that fight. I was a purple belt now, but so maybe a little bit over my head in my next match, but kind of rebounded a little bit and then ended up in Bellator. The matchmaker, it's kind of, right place, right time. The matchmaker for Bellator at the time was from Philly and was familiar with a lot of the local talent and everything. So I was on Bellator 2, which I'm proud of, the second Bellator ever. I don't know what are they at now?
300.
Okay.
Bellator 300.
There you go. I feel old, but I'm kind of proud of what like I said, I'm proud of what I did in a short period of time. I was on Bellator 2 and Bellator 11. I won my fight at Bellator 2. And then I lost Bellator at Bellator 11, and then kind of knew that I was dealing with some injuries with my back and everything, and I didn't want to kind of end like I did, so did one more. I fought the 2300 arena in South Philly in a local promotion in the main event, and got the W there, and kind of felt good about how things were at that point.
So you had so that's 2010. And then when did you actually like debut, or actually I'm really training like to know you were going to make an attempt at pro wrestling, then make your actual in-ring debut? Because I know there had to have been quite a gap there between 2010 when you actually... There was.
Yeah, that's the dark ages there.
Oh, okay. I see. Gotcha. I didn't know how long those dark ages lasted. Okay.
Yeah. It was like 2016 is when I first stepped into a pro wrestling ring to start training. I took those like trial classes and stuff. And then by 2018, which is a bit of time, but 2018, I started full-time training.
Gotcha. And then your in-ring debuts were around 2019.
Yeah. So, I mean, the wheels, if you guys know anything about Chikara, the wheels of Chikara turn very slowly. It's very story driven. And it was, we were part of this storyline that kind of wasn't ready to kind of be unveiled yet. So I started training in January 2018 and debuted May of 2019 in Chicago.
Wow. And then so we're talking 2019, now it's 2023, about a year or so off. So I mean, and being 37 doing this and still being like pretty young in the run, but having accomplished a lot. Like I think you first got on my radar through Beyond Wrestling is when I first started really seeing you often on IWTV. What's it like being at 37 doing this now? Because you always hear the stories like DDP starting at 35, but like he didn't have an MMA career prior to that.
I appreciate you saying DDP too, because I think about that all the time. I kind of like tell myself, I'm like, you're the new DDP, you're this generation's DDP. But because I mean, my goal would be to make it, to get signed. But I realize, I've had talks with some people from some companies, and when they find out how old I am, I don't hear from them anymore. So I'm again, I'm very happy with what I've accomplished with in the short period of time, even, with the layoff now. It's like, it's weird that there is that gap where I didn't wrestle for like a year and a half, but mentally it doesn't feel like that. It feels like I've been in it the whole time. Which I know is not true. Cause like you said, debuted officially in 2019, and then had the large layoff. So yeah, I mean, for the normal wrestling terms, that's not a lot of time. That's still very young in my career, but it doesn't necessarily feel that way to me. Sure. It almost feels like the MMA stuff was like all part of it. It's like everything that it's like that quote, like everything I've done has led me to this point. So I just kind of went a different way about it. Some people look at me crazy when I say this, but like, I got out of mixed martial arts fairly young, just again, short story, like physically, financially, and mentally, it wasn't worth it for me. And then people be like, "Oh, so you got into wrestling?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." I went to school at Temple for like film and media arts. I never really like did anything professionally in that realm, but like making media and telling stories and things like that is definitely a passion of mine. And honestly, pro wrestling is like this. It's like, it's me. It's like physicality, the combat sports element, the storytelling, the fantasy. It's just, there's so many elements that I like love about pro wrestling. I feel it is like the most underrated art form on the planet. And yeah, I'm very grateful that I'm able to keep doing it right now. So I'm going to keep doing my best to, just keep trucking forward until the wheels fall off here.
I did want to ask about you mentioned top companies, they find out your age and then you don't know about things, but you were with a company at the end of 2021 with the pandemic with ROH, and you were part of the top prospect show. And you mentioned like you are still kind of a prospect and sort of in the world of wrestling despite being 37. But were there any future plans with that? Because that was when they went right on hiatus, right after those shows.
Yeah, no, that's a big bummer for me, having the foot in the door, basically at what the goal was for me. It's pretty much been ROH, AEW. I'm talking about it with you guys, and I know this is going to be public and everything. At this point, I don't care anymore talking about my age. I look a little bit younger than I am, so I kind of get away with that.
I would never have known.
Like, I think, Jeremy, you might have, when I said I was 37, oh shit, he's 37.
Yeah. I mean, you're older than me, and you look way younger than me.
Okay.
So.
Same. Well, yeah, it's where but I don't care as much anymore. I get, and honestly, with a company like AEW, it's like, if I feel like they're more open to, signing people that are passionate or they can sell in the moment, not necessarily investing in like a 10-year plan, or which may or may not be smart. I'm not going to kind of get into that, but like, I in my heart, I still feel like it's possible. So I'm going to keep going for it, other companies, maybe not so much. And that's fair. Again, we were talking about earlier, and getting older and being more injury prone is absolutely a thing. We're seeing it a lot in wrestling right now. Like, man, when Adam jumped off that dude, I saw it and I was like, oh no. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to also get into wrestling, is that I had a little more control over what happens to my body, right? Like with mixed martial arts, the person across me is literally trying to kill you. And, with wrestling, it's, somebody wants to do something, and maybe I'm like, maybe not this time, or whatever, or I'll try to change things around so that I feel safe and I'm comfortable with whatever it is that we're going to do in a match. That's always been like a big thing for me in wrestling. It's just having that control, at least, a much higher level of control over what's happening in the matches.
Now, something that you have to keep into account at all times is control of your body and also control of your opponent's body. It's just as important to keep your opponent safe in these scenarios as well. And something that I think you have created that I think is really badass. This is the theme here is badass, by the way. The theme of this interview is badass. The Joe Schilling thing, the MMA stuff. Your finishing move is badass.
Oh,
so,
appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think you've done a great job of mixing the world of MMA and the world of pro wrestling in a move that looks like. So for people who don't know, who haven't seen this, your finishing move is like a top rope avalanche cross arm breaker.
That I would call that my super finish. Yeah. I like the Chaos Theory finish too, the Mighty Mouse. He's kind of been up. He's been up a lot lately, but yeah, I utilize the Mighty Mouse probably. That's the most.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I often see people sharing the avalanche.
Yes.
But no, the Mighty Mouse that's awesome too. That's a deep cut too for the MMA fans.
Yeah, I know.
very much appreciate that too. Don't get me wrong. But what I love so much about the idea of the avalanche cross arm breaker is that like it looks like it would hurt equally bad like a superplex would. It's a top rope like bomb pretty much, and then you're literally landing in the submission hold. It's like it's like a perfect double whammy of like a wrestling move for someone who has an MMA background. How did you come up with that move?
So I can't take credit for it at all. The first person I saw do it was Kushida in New Japan, and I believe Rocky Romero has used it a lot too. I think there's like a PWG match where maybe Zack Sabre did it one time. But yeah, Kushida was the inspiration. I when New Japan was on like Access TV, I used to watch that a lot. And it was him in a match with Bushi, I believe. Maybe like a Best of the Super Junior tournament or something like that. Kushida, definitely another big influence for me overall in terms of like stylistically and all of that. Another guy like Kyle O'Reilly, he's another guy that kind of inspired me to maybe want to try this out, because he doesn't have a professional MMA background, but definitely a MMA background in terms of his training and everything.
I think Kyle O'Reilly, for a guy who doesn't have a professional background, is one of the best when it comes to blending all of that stuff. So that's a good shout with that. And then, speaking of kind of blending stuff, Bloodsport put on by Josh Barnett, and obviously he likes to put in the different wrestling and MMA techniques and elements. And you are a guy who has competed in both. So what was it like, kind of competing in that world as one of the few guys who has actually also stepped into the cage?
I've been scheduled for a few more than I've done, but I've had 3 Bloodsport matches, and I'll point to my match with Simon Grimm. We didn't really call a whole lot, like maybe 2-3 things, and then other than that, we just kind of went out there, and basically it would be like a hard sparring session, or like, I was like, I'm gonna try to palm strike you and you need to try to block it. He bloodied my nose. He head butted me at one point. That's a shoot. I'm not like fucking around. Like one point we were grappling, and I don't know, he probably didn't do it as hard as he could, but he gave me a headbutt. I always give him shit about that. But I mean, they're like it, I mean, this don't want to go off on a tangent, but like the match with Barnett and Claudio from last week. Did you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
If you haven't, you should. Oh yeah, it's amazing.
With Mox on commentary, like explaining who Barnett is for people who wouldn't know too. I thought that was so good.
Yeah, but I love that was incredible. I'm so happy for Josh. The match, it was great. I would love to see more of that on on television. And that's the stuff that I would love to bring to the table. But in terms of Bloodsport, yeah, they're definitely some of my favorite matches too. I feel like most comfortable, doing those types of matches. And I mean, they can be a lot of fun. Probably more physical than a regular match, but again, if you have 2 professionals that have experience with I would say sparring and stuff like that in a controlled environment, That's basically what you're doing. It's like a controlled spar where you're not like, I wasn't trying to knock out Simon Grimm, but I'm like making real contact with my palm on his face if he didn't do anything. Like if he just stood there. I think that if you go back and watch it, the first one I threw was like much quicker than maybe he was expecting. And I kind of caught him and he's like, oh shit, this is like, it's going down. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, they've all been great. I'm so grateful to have been on those shows, and I look forward to hopefully being on more in the future.
Yeah, something that I think they do so good in that shows is like, and I've seen it at other companies as well, like Paradigm with like their UWFI style shows and stuff like that. I think have done a good job with it and stuff, the presentation and but have you you don't need to name names, of course, but like as somebody who's been in both worlds, I'm sure you've seen. I mean, I know I've seen wrestlers before where like you can tell they're trying to implement MMA, but like they don't have a background in it. Like, do you spot that like immediately? And like, what are your thoughts when you see that? Are you just kind of like, you shouldn't be doing this? Or like, do you ever say something about it? Because sometimes it's like really obvious that like they're throwing kicks completely wrong. And like, you know, you pick up on it if you watch both, and maybe wrestling fans probably don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is an interesting subject. I kind of appreciate you bringing it up because it does bother me when people utilize certain techniques and it's bad. Yeah. But the problem is wrestling fans don't really know that it's bad.
Right.
So it might still get cheered or whatever, like, because honestly, pro wrestling fans, they might still relate to like someone trying to hit someone else. That's still like a thing that you can always relate to. So whether the kick was good or not doesn't really matter. But in terms of like technique in the kicks, I appreciate that a lot. So when I see people kicking in pro wrestling, especially in America, I like Matt Seidel comes to mind, Bryan Danielson, Malachi Black. Those are some of the guys, of course, Kyle. Those are some of the guys, like, when they kick, I'm like, you know, like chef's kiss. I'm like, oh, yes, thank you, you know, because I guess this is, again, sorry, a little tangent, but like guys like Mox and Brian doing things like arm bars and leg kicks and stuff. And now when people watch my matches, they'll be like, they might not think I'm copying them, but it becomes like more acceptable in a pro wrestling ring. Where when I do it, especially when I first started, I don't get this a lot anymore, but a couple times to be like, this isn't MMA or whatever, you know. I'd get like some fan would yell that, and maybe because I was the bad guy or whatever. But now you're seeing, you know, I made a comment about Wrestle Dream the other day. I've never seen that many cross arm breaker attempts on a pay-per-view ever. It was like Zach had one, Shibata. There was, I could probably go on. There were so many matches with like an arm bar, like a cross arm breaker in it. And I was like, this is pretty sweet for me. Like, I don't know. It's just becoming a more recognizable thing. It's like in pro wrestling, when you see somebody slap on a Boston Crab or like a figure four, you almost automatically know at least that's a submission. Even if you've like haven't watched much wrestling, for some reason, those types of moves are like so iconic that you just get like, even the most like layman of wrestling fan kind of knows what's going on. So, and this is something I've had to adapt to a little bit. Like sometimes my stuff can go like way over people's heads. Maybe it's a little too complicated. The grappling or the transitions. That's still something I feel like I have gotten a lot better at, but just like trying to keep things simple that the crowd can understand what's going on, or show that the struggle is happening, and that my opponent's trying to get out of it, and then I'm using some type of technique to like counter that. So that's always something I've had to kind of try to adapt to, because at the end of the day too, I do want to show like I do want to show like I won't say different, because there are other guys that have been doing this stuff before me, like Zach Sabre and John Gresham come to mind. Those are also guys that I watched a lot, kind of starting and before I got started, because they utilize a lot of like jiu-jitsu techniques and And I was like, man, I know what he's doing. I could do that. So again, it kind of inspired me that's part of what inspired me to start. But yeah, all that stuff like becoming more normalized. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that.
Sure, but on the flip side, like you detect pretty quickly when like somebody doesn't have the background.
Yeah. So sorry to kind of, I would say if to wrestlers out there, I would say, you know, please get some like formal training in certain techniques. It's wouldn't be very acceptable, or people would probably crap all over that.
Yeah,
you know, like you can't. It's like you're butchering these techniques. Like I'm sure, you know, as ruthless as the IWC is anyway for certain things. Again, if somebody's like doing, again, like a regular suplex or a run of the mill like wrestling move, but it's all sloppy or the technique is off, like they're probably gonna hear about that, or fans are not gonna like it. But as mixed martial arts too has become more mainstream, I think people are seeing how kicks are actually thrown and how strikes are actually thrown. So those types of things are becoming more like fans kind of just recognize and maybe appreciate the folks that do throw those types of techniques with good form or good technique, whatever you want to call it.
Sure. I mean, obviously, like, you know, the UFC and WWE merging recently, TKO, I mean, so there's going to be even more of that coming up soon, I'm sure, with like people wanting to see crossover stuff and people in both worlds. Now, this is riddle me this, Matt. So I just have to pick your brain a little bit. Now, you mentioned like not having like trained in MMA or like a background in MMA, but like attempting these moves and like knowing the difference. What would you say if, like, hypothetically speaking, somebody like had trained for years in MMA and maybe even competed in the UFC and it still didn't look very good? Like, would you recommend like they maybe change their moveset to where like they weren't using those techniques because it didn't look good, because they could just use other moves that would like look better?
Jeremy, why are you laughing? I don't. Are you guys trying to get me in trouble?
No, I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
No,
you don't have to answer that question at all.
No,
I will be transparent with you, Matt. He's not trying to get anybody in trouble. He is not a fan of one CM Punk and the way he throws his strikes. And you having an MMA background and being successful in MMA, he is very much picking your brain and just wondering kind of your thoughts on how CM Punk has sort of transitioned using his MMA, where he was not very successful, and then kind of putting that in pro wrestling. And I think we can all agree CM Punk is a very good pro wrestler.
Absolutely. And by the way, this is topical too, because I've heard Bobby Fish talk about this. I've heard other people that respect martial arts talk about this specifically, and you're just kind of like the perfect person to ask about this.
I think the problem is somebody would have to tell them to stop.
Right.
And I mean, I can't comment on
of course
Phil's stuff. So
I think we all agree that fantastic professional wrestler. It was just an interesting. I was just curious if you had any thoughts on that. Because I've heard other wrestlers talk about it.
I mean, you know, if I do a technique or a spot or a move, and I have a good coach, they're probably going to be honest with me and be like, you either need to work on that, or I would maybe change that to something else. And that could be literally anything, you know, anything in wrestling, like a Irish whip or a body slam. You know, if it's like, Matt, I think, Matt, you need a little work on your body slam, or maybe I would change that spot up a little bit, or something like that. So you kind of need like I would say like a mentor or somebody you respect to maybe help you kind of come up with something new or to work on that. But yeah, I mean, it bugs me a little bit when that like techniques are, I don't even know how to word it.
No, it's okay. Because I personally, as a fan of both, I think it kind of disrespects both, because like you're making like the pro wrestling audience doesn't understand what they're seeing. Like they don't know the difference in these techniques potentially, so like they're kind of like being deceived. And then the MMA world, like you're seeing that, and you're like even Bobby Fish said himself, he's like, I've been throwing step back kicks my entire life, but like I don't throw super kicks because like it just doesn't look right when I throw super kicks for whatever reason. It doesn't look good, but I could throw kicks my entire life.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with what you just said. So
yeah. Cool. Jeremy, go ahead with your question next.
I
apologize, Matt. I swear I'm not trying to get you.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Is Billie Starkz a bully?
You guys know I've wrestled Billie, right?
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
No, she's exactly like she comes off on television or anywhere else. That's not like a gimmick she's doing. She's actually like just a bubbly, happy person. At least, that's how she presents herself backstage too. So, no, she was great to work with. And, I'm super happy for Billie. Everything that's been going on with her in her career recently has been awesome.
Everyone says, and anytime I've talked to Billie, she's been fantastic. There is just a joke and a bit that Billie Starkz likes to bully people because she's Bully Starkz to a lot of people. She gets people to try to do dumb stuff. So I will ask that. Did she present any ideas of like, hey, let's do this stupid thing where we can all get hurt?
No. The finish to that match was I caught her out of her big swanton in an armbar. So that might have been, I can't remember whose idea that was, but I enjoyed the finish. So yeah, it was pretty sweet. I got no complaints.
Wrestling guys like Wheeler Yuta, Daniel Garcia, Alex Kane, who I'm high on. Like, what's it like sharing the ring with these people? Especially, I think you did the Pure Rules match with Yuta, and Garcia is like almost straight up Pure Rules. But what's it like sharing the ring with those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you bring them up because those are, I would say, like Daniel Wheeler and Lee Moriarty. Are guys that like I feel like I've been like chasing, or I was trying to like get to their level as quickly as I could after I debuted. They were kind of the talk of the town, like as I was kind of starting to cut my teeth on the independents, and I was so lucky to be able to have like a program with Yuta essentially in 2021. We wrestled 4 times. Twice at Beyond, and 2 of those matches are like top 3 for me, like in terms of my career. 2 of them with Wheeler Yuta. So Daniel, I got to wrestle at ICW during the collective weekend, or it was maybe not. But it was in Indiana, and again, super nice. I'll call him a kid for the, it's just much younger than me, but super nice guy. I haven't been able to wrestle Lee. Alex is super nice too. I mean, I feel so lucky. Like there's, wrestling is like, you hear a lot of horror stories, about just like guys that are like, just wrestlers that are grumpy. I feel like a lot of these guys are maybe, I don't like talking bad about anything or anyone, but like just guys that are maybe wrestling the same place over and over, and they're just kind of, they feel like they should be somewhere else or something, or they should be bigger than they are, and maybe they have a little bit of a thing about that, and so whenever they see a new guy coming up, they want to like kind of shit on the new people or whatever, because like that's how they feel now, and some kind of weird thing. But I guess, again, Chikara, the locker room was incredible. One of my first singles matches was with Jigsaw, who's wrestled all over ROH Impact. It was in Chikara forever. He was so nice to me, and was so receptive to my ideas. Again, I had maybe under 10 singles matches at the time or something, and I'm forever grateful for him. I guess what I'm trying to say, a lot of the locker rooms that I've been in, Beyond Wrestling, JCW, Paradigm, just like a good group of people that are just trying to we're all in this together. We're all trying to wrestling is hard. As much as this pulled me out of the dark ages, it's like it kind of brought me to a different spot because it's tough, like mentally. And so we're all in it together. We're all just like grinding, working hard, trying to get to the same spot in a way. So I guess that's why there could be a lot of like stepping on toes and things like that. But out of all my matches, like I would say 98% of them have been very pleasant experiences. So, again, I'm very grateful for that. And I think a lot of that is because I was lucky to like kind of get in with Beyond pretty quickly, and then get that Bloodsport booking in 2019. And that kind of was like, maybe some of the higher level indies or whatever, like, who's this kid and let's try him out or whatever. So I got to work with some good places. And yeah, I've had nothing but good experiences. And I'm very conscious of like making sure I'm being very respectful to everyone and respecting your elders and like, or people that have been around, veterans, people that have been even, people younger than me, that have been doing this longer than me. I try to be as nice as I can. I hate, so for all my career choices and everything, I hate confrontation. Like I hate like social confrontation. So, I do like physicality and competition and things like that. But, I'm just trying to be a nice guy, I guess.
we appreciate that. I got one last question for you,
Yeah,
Matt,
man.
and it's about the most recent match you had against Braden Toon at JCW. You just mentioned JCW. You've been there a bit more regular, wrestled Alex Coughlin recently there as well.
Yeah.
What are maybe some of your goals with JCW? Because of course that they're like a sister company, whatever you want to call it, to GCW. Their events air on their YouTube channel, which I really love that you can watch those shows for free. What I know you said your overall experience has been positive, like in independent wrestling just in general, but JCW specifically, you got some thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of look at JCW as like whatever you want to call it, the NXT of GCW. I mean, there's no other way around that. So with that being said, I would love to kind of become more of a mainstay at GCW one day. But there's part of me too that's like, maybe I could be like this, the draw at JCW. Like I'd be there's guys on the come up, but then there's like, you got to have, maybe there's somebody like bigger that would sell tickets. Like they just had Tracy Williams there wrestling, and again, Ring of Honor, a former like Ring of Honor tag team champion, all that stuff. I don't know, maybe there's been talks that maybe he and I tag a little bit. I don't know, something, just stuff like that. So like, I don't know. I really enjoy those JCW shows as well. Those fans are great. They're great wrestling fans. There's always a good energy in the room. And it's just a place I like look forward to wrestling. Of course, GCW has a little bit different flavor. It's a little bit, I guess, the deathmatch stuff. It's like a little bit more hardcore. But they have, they book like John Gresham, Zack Sabre Jr., guys like that. So, I guess I just have to keep proving that I can get it done at JCW and then maybe become, kind of get the call to go up to GCW,
One more follow-up about that. Do you have any interest in doing death matches? Like if you got the call and they offered it to you, that's something you'd be open to?
It's funny. Like, so, I mean, I don't want to, I don't know. I don't think my wife wants me to bleed, you know? I would probably do it. I would do like one. Here's the thing. If you want my honest, like, I really think those types of matches should be like saved for some type of blow off, or like there should be some kind of build. I'm not a big fan, and Brett Lauderdale, forgive me, but like death matches for the sake of death matches is just not my thing. I can see it is. I can see why it would be entertaining and why people would be into it. Part of a feud or some type of blow off with somebody. Yeah, it's so like this is a little scratch. But us little grappler guys, we have like a running joke where we wrestle at these shows because they had the Fight Club weekend the night before, right? So there's still shards of glass basically all over the ring, and they're sweep. Don't get me wrong, they're trying to sweep it out, clean everything out. But those light tubes, it just gets. I've had some type of abrasion or scratch just from grappling around on a deathmatch canvas for the last few weeks that I can imagine, like I don't know where this came from, but I swear it's from like just me bumping or rolling, and I just get a little cut up on the glass. So I'm basically already a deathmatch guy.
There you go.
We've
gotta
had
up your rate when that happens.
Yeah.
We've had a few wrestlers mention that. Garini, I think, was because he wrestles barefoot. He's like, I ain't following these deathmatch people. The glass stays out there, and then pricks in his feet and everything. Yeah, we've had a few wrestlers mention of like, I ain't following these death matches. Y'all gotta do something to clean things up here. Last one. We ask everybody this: what is the coolest thing in your room?
In my room?
Yes, and if you don't mind showing us, if you're able to, we would love to see it.
Oh, in this room? I mean, I got my wedding album.
That's pretty cool.
Hey, as a wife guy and a wedding guy, a person who loves love, I respect that.
I have some wrestling posters, like JC. Another reason I like JCW is they always have posters, and I always grab one. So I have a bunch of JCW posters. Cool. This is from when I won the USKBA amateur title. I had the Weapon X hair. I did bleach. You remember back in the day, guys, when everyone all the MMA guys dyed their hair blonde, like Tito Ortiz and everybody. You know what I mean? Like that was me. I just did it with like three stripes. And this was a photo that a friend of mine took, and she got it framed for me. So
that is very cool.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have this here for some reason.
Oh, nice! It's WWE Pez.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I'm a collector.
We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Very cool.
That's
very
sweet.
Cool. Love it.
It's just I don't know why that's down there. But
Matt, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for talking to us for nearly an hour here, and let everybody know where they can find you at.
I'm on Twitter, like it has on the screen here, at the Matt Makowski, and then my Instagram is Matthew Makowski.
There you go. Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Again, everyone go follow him. All the links are below. Go support him. Thank you again, Matt. We appreciate your time tonight. And guys, we'll be right back here on the Spotlight. We are back. Big thanks to Matt Makowski for joining us on the Creator Spotlight, in the Creator Spotlight, on the Creator Spotlight, however you want to phrase that. Appreciate everybody in the chat joining us today. Everyone, follow me on X at Tony Khan. Just follow Tony Khan on Twitter. Enjoy that. Guys, again, thank you. Thank you for joining us this week. It's been a busy week in the world of wrestling, as it always is. I gotta go cover some Tony Khan tweets now. taking shots at everybody. Bless them. We'll be on Fight Club Overbooked tomorrow in the weeds, 10 a.m. Eastern, myself and Joel Pearl. I'm sure we will talk about Tony Khan and his tweets, among other things. We're scheduled to have a guest from MLW Slaughterhouse scheduled to join us tomorrow. Go check out our interview that we did with Alex Kane. That's on Fight Club Overbooked. Head over to Fight Club Overbooked. Check out all the interviews that we do, all the shows that we do. Support the content creators who provide us with content. over there. Thanks for tuning in. Head over to Fightful.com. Get all your news. Head over to FightfulSelect.com. Best $5 in the business. Do all that fun stuff. Do all Fightful. All things Fightful all the time. Thank you guys again. We'll be back next week, myself and Jensen, a brand new episode of The Spotlight. Until then, everyone, enjoy your weekend.